training and you had another incident, but you were telling me before, at 17 years old, you had a heart attack?
Yeah, so got in a car wreck. I was out driving one day, being an idiot with my friends. Just started raining. Went around this corner of this road, and I hit another car head on. Well, the injury was the airbag deployed and hit me in the chest. So I just got like a contusion on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go to the hospital or anything like that. Well, it was like right at the beginning of my cross country season, my junior year. And, so I was running quite a bit. And for a couple weeks, I trained after this accident, and like I felt it. And I felt like an oncoming or something, but I was like young and I was running a lot, so I was just like, well, of course my chest hurts. Well, unfortunately, I literally like ran myself to a heart attack because that airbag compression bruised my heart, and my heart was just swelling. Oh. So like the entire time, like I was feeling it, I literally was dealing with a heart swell. And it expanded so much it literally seized within my chest because it couldn't beat.
Holy smokes.
It's pretty fucking nuts. But, I healed pretty quickly from it. Like I said, it was right before the start of my cross-country season my junior year. I was cleared by the doctor to go back to competing. I think it was like end of October. So like this happened in August. So like soon after,
that's quick.
My heart had healed enough that the doctor was like, you can go back to training. And I went back and told my coach, no, I want to race.
So, how old are you?
38 now.
So you were 17. Did you go get checked out after the car accident?
No.
Okay, so you had a contusion, which obviously we figured out after the fact.
Yeah, after the fact, unfortunately.
Then you got checked out. You're running. You said a week later or 2 weeks later?
Yeah, a couple weeks. It was about almost 2 weeks after the accident happened that we were out doing a workout one day, and we had just finished the workout, and I told my coach, I'm feeling kind of off, and I just keeled over.
Oh, you went unconscious? Holy crap. So you obviously went to the hospital then.
Yeah, it took me to the hospital then. Like, yeah, you just had a heart attack. And, luckily, it wasn't anything severe. There's no ruptures or anything like that. They didn't have to open me up.
Right.
They just obviously identified you have a massive heart contusion. Your whole heart's swollen. That's why you had this heart attack. And obviously, you just got done with this massive workout. So, but I healed within, a couple months. I was cleared to go back to running. And it was districts was like there's three meets left of the season, and I was allowed, since I was injured to compete in those 3 races if I qualified. So I won districts. I think I got second at sectionals and got 6th at state that year. And I didn't run all the way up until that point. I had no training, nothing. I couldn't even carry my book bags. My teammates had to carry my book bag for me because they didn't want my heart rate getting up past 95 or some shit.
Wow. So you went to the hospital after you passed out. They just determined from your blood work, I assume you had elevated cardiac labs
and MRI. They did the whole extensive thing on me. They did a stress test, cardio stress test on me. And it was crazy. It's because it was literally induced because of the accident.
Right.
And then I just went straight to training, and I just kept riding it off until my body said no.
Well, you were redlining something that was injured.
Yeah. Which is kind of just my thing anyways.
In a sport that's all cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that you went back and then did so well, because I don't know, cardio, I've trained with you jiu-jitsu, and I know that it's you can take 2 weeks off, and some reason you still can go 4 days.
Cardio is definitely something I've always had.
Yeah.
Even, I competed running from the time I was 14 is when I started racing till, 28. And then I kind of just stopped completely, just because honestly I just kind of got bored with it.
Yeah.
And I ran a lot. I went at the peak of it, there was weeks I was training 150 miles a week and running.
Oh my God.
And I was a mid-distance runner too. I wasn't a long distance runner. 5K was typically the longest race that I do, because I like speed. But so I'd be running miles like that fast. I'd be going out and running sub 6 miles for a 10-mile run. And just calling that stride.
Stride.
Just being stupid.
Where'd you go to high school?
Blue Springs. Yeah, I graduated in '06.
Are you originally from like the metro?
Yeah,
from
grew up in Blue Springs.
That's
yeah.
great. So the reason I asked is because I haven't seen you in a while, and your cousin obviously informed me that you had another incident. But before we get to that, did you have to take any medications?
No.
So they
No.
just determined you had some damage, but because there was a traumatic, like inherent thing that happened prior, they realized it's going to probably heal and go back to full function. So you don't have any medications.
Yeah.
Then you're fine until this most recent incident, as far as your heart.
Yeah, and I had some until this most recent, which definitely like what put it over is I took an edible.
Right.
The night that had happened, but I had taken that much before multiple times. It's not like this was anything new. I had some like build up to that a few times over that year, like leading up to that point where like I probably had some small things and I just kind of wrote them off. There was actually times training where like there was one time I think I was rolling with Strong and like I overpowered him and like I was able to move him, but like I used all my energy to do so. Like I shut off for a second and like came back to, and there was like stuff like that where I was like, oh, this is getting strokey.
Yeah. Oh.
So I mean, I definitely had some warnings leading up to the point. Like obviously that evening, I was like already at a higher stress rate, just had some shit going on, and took this freaking edible, and like I was actually laying down with my son.
How many milligrams was that?
Oh, it was like 100. Oh, which I've done way more than that before, but still, when you're already at like a heightened state.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's and it's like I was putting my son down to bed, and he was having a mood, and I was like getting stressed out, and like I felt it coming on as I was laying down with him. I was
like a sense of panic. Or was there physical symptoms?
Physical symptoms, definitely a sense of like the sense of panic, because I've had stints of stuff like that before where I was able to breathe through it, and like I wasn't breathing through this.
Stints, no pun intended.
Yeah, thank God, none yet. But and so I got up because I was like, I was telling myself, don't die in bed next to my son. I literally felt like I was dying. I was like, fuck. So I get up, I walk downstairs, and I'm standing in the kitchen. And our kitchen looked in, like you could see into the living room. And my wife was facing away from me, cleaning up the kids' toys and stuff after they've gone down to bed. And I'm sitting there leaning up against the counter, and like I was killing over. And she just happened to look back, and like I was pale. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm having a heart attack. She's like, should I call an ambulance? And I was like, honestly, like what was processing at the time was I don't want to go die in a fucking hospital. And my own arrogance and cockiness, I guess, in a sense of my own being, is like I can control most things in my body. And I think there's been times where like I was like on the onset of a heart attack that I breathed through it, and you can't always do that, and that's what this time was, because I sure as fuck did. Unfortunately it was stress induced. It wasn't because like a clogged artery or anything like that. So it's kind of the same thing. Like I waited a few days like an idiot. It happened like on a Friday night, and I called the VA on Monday, got in immediately, went in, just did a basic what do you call it?
Like blood panel stress test.
Yeah,
things
stress
like
test,
that. Yeah.
Right then, they determined, it wasn't massive or anything like that, but my blood pressure was pretty damn elevated.
Yeah.
So like I had definitely markers, and they just gave me blood pressure medication. Because that was the thing. It's like a same thing. A month later, I went and did another stress test, and I maxed out their machine. And like they asked me if I wanted to keep going just to see if I could get it higher.
Yeah.
And like I think the target range that they wanted me to get to from our heart rate was like 185, and I got to like 215. So, but that wasn't normal for me. Like I've always been able to like get my heart rate that high and like not have issues, which has been pretty interesting. That was like another thing like I found out when I was a kid. Whenever I had that heart, like I never had my heart checked prior to that, so I had no clue. And I just always had a proclivity for that. And that probably explains my cardio. And like, even within the means of like running, every time like I get an itch, because I do from time to time, it's something like I was really good at. I definitely, if I kept with it, absolutely could have gone to the Olympics. That was definitely a possibility for me at one time. So I have an itch every once in a while, and I'll go out, and when I go out, I go. I'm not jogging. Like, I'll go out and like test myself, and there's been times like I'll go out and just sprint a mile, and even today I could go out and like run a sub 5 minute mile, no problem. Just because I know how, like mechanics know how to do it. I'm gonna hurt afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm almost 40, so it won't feel as good. But
Yeah, you have that intrinsic ability to push yourself. I do the same thing. I get on these kicks where, I've been fat so many times, and then I'm like, I think I'm that skinny guy when I get back on the journey. And then the next day I'm like, well, I'm in bed for a week because I just ran 5 miles and I haven't ran in 6 months. So you're 17, you have this heart attack. When did you enlist into the Marines?
21.
21.
And I had to get a waiver. But obviously the waiver pass was actually pretty easy. So the waiver I got obviously was for the heart attack because they check all your medical records. So they saw that, but they also saw that after that I went on to get multiple all-state titles. I got an All-American title, like all in the stint before I joined the Marine Corps and after this incident. So it obviously was the fluke of a car wreck, and there's nothing else saying that was having long-lasting damage. So they waived it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was able to go in the Marine Corps from there. But I dropped out of college when I was 20, and I was out for about a year. And it was like right after I turned 21 is when I went to boot camp.
What were you originally going to go to college for?
Art, which the reason I honestly, even when I was younger, my interest was medicine, like naturopathy. Mm-hmm. So I've always like had an interest in like natural medicine, like acupuncture is like kind of what I wanted to do for a long time. But for one, like that, I ended up going to Park University in Parkville, Missouri. And the reason why I went there is because it's an NAIA school, and I graduated high school with a 2.6 GPA. So I couldn't get into a D1 school and get scholarship, or if I did get scholarship, I wouldn't be able to compete. So like I could compete at this school because it was a different division. So like I ended up going there, but I didn't want to go to college in the first place. I just felt like it was necessary because I had scholarship.
Yeah.
So I did, and I went and I competed, and I got an All-American title my freshman year, and tried it. Like I dropped out after my second semester sophomore year, pursuing art because like I didn't really want to do the work of anything else, and I didn't want to do it, period. And then ultimately just dropped out, and then spent about a year out of the Marine Corps just working in restaurants and shit. Or pardon me, out of college working in restaurants and stuff, and then joined the Marine Corps after.
What ultimately led to your decision? Did you have family in the military?
So that was there's a guy. I think he was a retired master sergeant, if I remember correctly. That he'd come in a few times. He was like a regular at this bar that I worked at, and he'd come in a few times a week, and he'd like give me shit. And there's a recruiting station across the parking lot from this bar, and he'd come in like, "Why don't you go and listen to the Marine Corps?" I'm like, "Fuck you, dude, no." Like I had no thought on my mind to do that. And then one day, like I got off early enough that the recruiting station was still open, and he's like, "Just come over there with me real quick." I was like, "Fuck it." I went over, talked to him, and I dipped in the next day.
Wow.
I was like, fuck it. You know what? Why not? Because they said the right things like a recruiter does. And honestly, I didn't want to do what I was doing right then. So like, why not?
Yeah.
Fuck it. So like I went ahead and signed the contract. And honestly, like my military experience was pretty cool. Like I didn't like my job. I got placed in administration because I went open contract. And they kind of just like throw you in with whatever your ASVAB says.
Yeah.
So for me, what was cool was like it really tested my intellect in a way that I'd never been tested before. Because at the end of the day, like I got to graduate high school with a 2.6 GPA and still get a full ride scholarship.
Which, honestly, looking back, I think more people know now than ever that GPAs, depending on what you want to do, are not that important. Like, it's hard to capture somebody's true talent to drive them towards something. Like, and we're so focused on grades and numbers, which, is one thing. It is a demonstration of your dedication.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But also, like, how many people would absolutely strive in opportunities that if they weren't limited by, I got a 2.6 because I didn't want to listen to this algebra class, but, I could be this or that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely Yeah, especially I was like diagnosed with ADHD when I was 7. Put on like Adderall when I was 7. You know, it's like I grew up like for one, like chemically, like my brain didn't get to develop properly until I was like in my late 20s.
Do you ever wonder if the Adderall had anything to do with like being on an amphetamine that early?
Because for one, like it didn't help my focus. For one, it didn't like it dulled me like it does a lot of people. You know, like felt like an SSRI. It seemed like, you know, like I was had lack of had no appetite like ever, and it was like it wasn't until I was like 16 or so that I kind of started flushing the pills down the fucking toilet.
Yeah,
you know, just because I knew it wasn't good for me.
So were you on amphetamines for 10 years then?
Yeah.
So you're nutrient deprived and you're taking amphetamines because you don't want to eat.
Yeah, man.
Obviously on Adderall.
And then on top of that, yeah, I think I was like training a lot as well. You know, so like I was in karate. I was doing all types of stuff. Like I was cycling, running. So just running off adrenaline all the time. You know, and like which a lot of people do. You know, but it's not good for your body. You know, especially like at a young age, like I was put on medication like that. That definitely stunted my like mental development. And it wasn't until, you know, like I was in the military and I was given like a structure for my brain to understand that like I started realize, oh shit, I'm actually pretty smart. Okay, I actually get this.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I'm good at this. Where I'd never had that before because I was so fucking dull that I couldn't like even put my energy towards whatever was being taught. Like even like subjects that I had interest in. You know, and that was like even in college, I was great at art. You know, but it wasn't like my passion. I just felt like if I'm gonna, they offer art here, you know, and I would love to do biology or something else, but also like I don't want to put in that time because I don't want to be here in the first place. So like it was like a means of settling, and I settled to settle.
But you're saying you did have a little bit of an epiphany that if your ADHD wasn't necessarily a handicap if you were interested in the subject. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the means of which like I don't take anything now.
Right.
I definitely still have that, but I've learned how to use it as a tool. You know, it's like because at the end of the day, it's like a superpower where it becomes definitely something that's debilitating. If in like places of high anxiety or like depression, that's when ADHD becomes a fucking problem for most people. But if you're shit straight,
what do you mean by that?
Well, because you get overwhelmed. You know, like to the point of like, you know, like for me, like even in the means of like when I had this last heart attack, it was definitely, yeah, of course I took something that inhibited that. But that's not what did it. It was all the months leading up to that moment of which I was in a heightened state of stress and not sleeping. Like I felt it, you know, like I knew this was going to happen. Like I wasn't surprised when I did, you know, but it was enough for me to like, okay, shit, I need to like fucking sleep. I need to like cut out the stuff that's like really causing my psyche to fail, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like there's so many things. Like I've built the foundation of everything I've done off of my own fruition, like a lot of people do now. Like that's kind of the beauty of especially like guys like your age that are, you know, you're now.
I'm 23 now, 31.
Yeah, dude. So it's like
old now.
You know, but even guys in like their 20s, like just because we have so much more access to information, you can kind of build your mind in a multitude of ways at a pace that we've never been able to do before.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like a lot of like I kind of like the last stitch of a generation that had to fight a little bit in the dark before like that light was turned on. Yeah. So like now I get like both paces, and it's like even in the means of like my current business, I don't really operate with a website, like phone call as of right now, like because I don't want to submit to that. I'm old school, you know. I'm still in the 80s, you know. So,
Dude, I think that's gonna be kind of a poor segue, but I think about this all the time. Is I think that is going to be a chronic feeling over time, after decade, because I have found myself, you know, in my job, I work with a lot of young guys who come onto the job who are 18, 19. They get into the academy and they don't even remember having to MapQuest on their dial-up internet. They're like, what do you mean you couldn't talk on the phone and get on the internet? And I was like, I used to get home from school and I would load like a Coheed and Cambria music video, and then I might be able to watch it before I go to school the next morning. Even though it's 4 minutes, it's going to take 18 hours to load. But I have a little bit of I don't want to falter to AI. I still have a little bit, but I use it now, but I almost think that the kids that are growing up now, the iPad generation, they might, in 15 years, when you just teleport somewhere, they'll be saying the same thing. They'll be like, we used to have to get on the iPad and type in Google Maps, and it's like, it might just be this overturning sense that never, ever, ever seems like, obviously there was a greatness to 70s, 80s, 90s, but also I think everyone's going to feel that way. I think the 2010 kids are going to be like, oh, it's not like the 2010s, or it's not like 2020. So you feel a sense of anxiety if you don't give in, because when I hadn't messed around with AI until maybe a couple months ago when we decided that we were going to try to do this again, and I felt kind of left out. I feel the same about crypto. I feel the same about, anything like that. I just feel like you either better get on board or you better have something that genuinely just makes you happy, like you're doing, because otherwise you're going to be in this place of like constant anxiety of feeling left out and feeling behind, because kids now, they're just exposed to, like you said, an infinite amount of knowledge. It's unparalleled.
Well, and unfortunately, it's like you become smart in a lot of things, but you're not an expert in anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like there's a lot of people that have, like, especially younger guys that are in their 20s, like even like guys that we like trained with in jiu-jitsu that are awesome. Like definitely seem a lot more ahead in a lot of senses than what I was at their age, But at the same time, it's like you gotta experience the grit.
Yeah.
And your AI is not going to give you grit.
Do you think they do in a different way, though? What about the hours that maybe
they're still showing up.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like if they're sitting there rolling with you, they're still there.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're all going to move with the times that the times present for us. So it's like nobody drove a car before there was a car.
That's a great way to put it.
Nobody flew in a plane before there was a plane.
Yeah, you're always going to be a product of your environment.
Yeah.
There's
so I mean,
it's
ever changing no matter what. Mm-hmm. So like even looking back now, like 2010 is nostalgia for most people that are even in their 20s.
Yeah.
In a way that it wasn't before.
Yeah.
It's like even like 70s rolling into 80s and 90s kind of blended.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't so much access to everything around that was developing at a different rate. Mm-hmm. It's like how many parts of the world today are still living in our 90s.
Yeah, but I mean, anybody with internet gets to see what's going on, and so it's a little different. So you walk across the street and you go to the recruiter's office and you sign up. And you're in there. You're 21. That's a little bit older, right, than most people would go to the Marines?
I mean, I'd say when I was in boot camp, I was one of the older guys, but there's a lot of people that are like 18, 19. And then there's like a handful of guys that are like 25, 26. I think the oldest guy that graduated in my class was 27, but he was in the Air Force prior.
Okay.
And then camp, which I don't know why I did that. But
So do you go to boot camp for Marines, or do you go to a basic training first?
Yeah, so for Marine Corps, there's two different boot camps, and basically how it's done is there's one in Parris Island, South Carolina, and then there's one in San Diego. Which the one in San Diego is the one I went to. So how that works is it goes off the Mississippi line. So if you're on that side, you go to South Carolina. You're on this side, you go to San Diego. Which the boot camp in San Diego, the recruit depot there is literally surrounded by the San Diego airport. So it's like you just have a fence between you and the flight line. And that's a pretty cool experience because like when you arrive, you fly in, everybody's coming in for wherever they're coming to go to boot camp, and you arrive at the airport and everything seems all fine, and then they take you into this little area, The next thing you know, you're getting screamed at and told to get on a school bus, and then they make you put your head down. They just drive circles around the exterior of the depot, and then they take you in.
Oh, to make it seem like you were traveling far. Do you know if they still do that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Some things you just don't want to go away. So you make it through your boot camp. What's your first assignment, or when do you decide what type of job you're going to go into?
So at the end of boot camp is when they give you your orders, or give you what your MOS is going to be. So like I had no clue, because I went sometimes. You can go in with a degree or a job field, but like for example, like you want to work in the airfield, and you say like I want to be something specific. That rarely happens, but they might like give you something in your contract that states that you have to work in the airfield. Whereas for me, I went an open contract, mostly I think because my recruiter was a good dude, and like I like wanted to do like Ricky Recon shit, and he's like, go an open contract. They'll put you. They're going to see your athletic ability. They're going to see like your ASVAB and stuff like that. And you'll probably find your way into something like that. So it wasn't until after I graduated boot camp or was in boot camp that they told me that I was going to do administration. I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, oh, you're going to sit behind a fucking desk. I was like, God damn it. Fucking shit. So, I mean, that's what my job was. But kind of the cool thing with the job that I was put in is, for one, it like allowed me like the time and space to like actually learn what the fuck I was, and like figure out like, oh, I have an intellect I just didn't realize I tapped into before, because it was much different to like abide by order when I was being made to, whereas I wasn't really ever made, and also I was inhibited with freaking Adderall and shit, up until like mid-teens. That I could like process things on my own, or even have the desire to. So like once I was given an order, I was like, okay, I can act on that, and then I could started making sense of things. So like yeah, they told me I was admin, and then the next thing that happens for the Marine Corps is once you graduate boot camp, then you go on to combat training. So everybody in the Marine Corps has to do that. And that's like one thing that separates the Marine Corps from every other branch of military is like you have to go through combat training, and then you go to your job field. And then like you'll go to your schooling for whatever your job field is. So like for me, it was like that, and then off to administrative, and then I got stationed.
Where'd you go to combat at?
So the combat training for the Marine Corps is in Camp Pendleton. So you go basically there for like a month. And you do your combat training then, and then you get cleared to go to
Where's that at? Camp Pendleton?
California.
Yeah. Is it pretty close to San Diego?
Yeah, not far. Yeah,
okay.
I want to say like less than 30 minutes or something like that.
And while you're in combat, what are the conditions like?
So you're just in the field. So like the reason why they do it in Camp Pendleton there is because like you're in like mountainous conditions. So like it's kind of similar to like being in Afghanistan. So like the training through that is like obviously putting you in combat conditions, like making sure everybody knows how to do navigation, like do land nav, do all stuff like that. So all you're in how to like properly fire a rifle or other weapons under stress. So like that's when you get your chance to fire the SAW, like the machine guns and all that stuff. So and everybody has to go through that, regardless of your job field. And if you're infantry, there's an actual specific infantry school for that. So like infantrymen won't do that, whereas everybody. So for an example, in the Marine Corps, if you're not an infantryman, they're called a POG, which means personal other than grunt. So it's like a derogatory term to anybody who's not an infantryman.
Oh, that's right along with the Marines.
Yeah. We even shit on each other.
Yeah. Did you know when you went to combat, you knew that you were going to be an admin?
Yes.
Was it a struggle mentally to... Were you bummed out, or because you didn't? It sounds like you didn't realize the massive intellectual development that you were going to have and the benefits to admin until after.
No, definitely not.
How did you feel when you're sitting there in combat training, knowing that you're going to an office job?
I tried to get out of it. So when I got to combat training, it's called MCT for the Marine Corps, Marine Corps Combat Training. So like I said, anybody who's other than infantry has to go through that training before they go on to their actual job fields training. So it's not like training you for combat, it's just getting you to understand like what combat is. So it's like, whereas if you actually get orders to deploy, there's actually like deployment training that you have to do, which is separate. So anyway, long story short, like, yeah, like as I'm, when you get to, you can kind of start to negotiate things like once you're actually a Marine. So like when you're in boot camp, you're not a Marine yet.
Okay.
Until you're at the very end, until you're in that title, you don't have rights to shit.
So until
you
you
don't
complete
ask
the
for
combat.
anything. So it's like once you get your actual title of being a Marine at the end of boot camp, then you can like start asking for stuff.
I see.
So when I went to MCT or Marine Corps or Marine Combat Training, like I told my instructors, I don't want to be administration. So like I started like, could I go to the infantry schools like right next to us? Could I like just hop in with one of their classes? And I tried, and they wouldn't let me.
How does one phrase that? Because ignorantly speaking, you're essentially saying that I want to be in the shit.
Yeah.
But you know that there's, when you're telling an adult that, they need to make sure you're doing things for the right reason. So when you're pleading with someone to basically be somebody who's going to be in a position to possibly take life away rather than admin, which the layman person would say, oh, dude, now you can say you're a Marine and you're an admin. That's great. But the people that go in there, in their head, they ultimately want to probably be in combat. They want to make a difference. So what is the type of conversation when you're pleading and saying admin isn't for me?
Oh, especially at that time, for one, like, they're not recruiters you're talking to. You're talking to active duty Marines that are combat instructors.
So they understand the drive that got you there initially.
Yeah, and then like so like as soon as I got there, like I was made when I got to MCT, I was made the guide, which basically means like you're the person like everybody follows, like you're the one who takes the direct order and you pass it on to the rest of your platoon, yada yada yada. And that was solely because as I was unpacking my things, I was pulling out all these supplements. And my instructor's like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm explaining to him what fucking glucosamine is and why I take it.
Right.
And then he's like, he had like me tell him more like about myself. And I was like, yeah, I went to college, I was all-American, I dropped out and then joined the Marine Corps. And he's like, oh, you're the fucking god. So like he was like, forced it upon me. So at that point, there's a couple other people that, were not happy with their job field that they got placed in as well. And like I heard like them having conversations and like starting to go to the combat instructors and ask them like, well, could I, switch to this? And since the infantry school had a few openings, they're allowing a few people to transfer over if they qualified, which I did, but it takes a lot of paperwork and I just don't think they wanted to do it. Is kind of what it came down to. And then also like, you got to earn things.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. It's like, for one, like in retrospect of like how I even like got placed in that job field in the first place is because I agreed with my recruiter to go open contract, which I kind of played it in my own mind. Well, they're going to fucking see me and they're like, recon. I just was like, I just assumed that, like I'm like, oh, this fucking dude, he's got all this energy. Yeah, of course he's going recon. Well, they also look at like what's available when you come in, and they also look at like how did you test. And for me, like I didn't really know what my aptitude was prior to that, and prior to like actually taking the ASVAB, like I didn't really know what I was smart in, and come to find out, I'm smart that way. You put a book in front of me and tell me to find everything wrong in it, I'll find it pretty quickly. I won't miss it. Like I didn't know that. I had no clue that I could like I just could see things that way. And it wasn't until I got like placed and then actually got into that job field and started doing it. I didn't like it, but also it wasn't because of the job. A lot of it was because of like the other people like I served with. Because you got to think, people go into the Marine Corps like wanting to be a Marine.
Right, which is what I was saying.
So there's a lot of ego based in that, so like you got a bunch of young guys, whereas like I had a lot of experience in life that was more than a lot of the people that I served with. So like that ego, like it already started to dissipate, and I was like accepting the role that I was in at that moment. So like I didn't necessarily even click with a lot of the people that I was stationed with or worked with. like I had a handful of guys, but it was like hit or miss, because I was always, a lot of times, like I found myself off kind of just being a loner. Like when I wasn't working, like I was going to the coast fishing. You're like, I found like a girl, like I dated a girl for a bit that lived 2.5 hours away from my base, and I'd go see her every weekend for like a year. Just, I dated a girl in Wisconsin for a bit when I was stationed in North Carolina.
So when you were an admin, you were stationed in different places as well?
So I was stationed in North Carolina at a base called Cherry Point, which is about an hour south of Camp Lejeune, or Jacksonville. So it's a Marine Corps Air Wing. So I worked in the IPAC there, which is an administrative center for the base. So I worked there for 3 years, and then I ended up getting orders, and I finished up my term here in Kansas City for the last 2 years that I was in.
And so what year would you have gotten out?
So I ended up getting out January 1st of 2014, off active duty.
Okay. So from 2012 to 2014, you were in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So ultimately why you're here then is because it sounds like you developed some relationships with some close people that ended up, unfortunately, taking their own lives.
Oh, no.
Which led you
to
exiting with trauma.
Definitely. And I had definitely a base of dealing with suicide since I was a young kid. Like the first suicide experience was 15. A friend of mine, a kid I went to church with. A couple months later, another friend that I went to church with committed suicide. Had one of my best friends growing up was diagnosed bipolar his sophomore year of high school. Ended up subsequently having to be homeschooled just because like he was so overwhelmed. Like he tried taking his life multiple times. Got family members that I've taken. So like even like before I joined the Marine Corps, I kind of became desensitized to that. And then unfortunately I had 3 different roommates that committed suicide. The 2 that I served with in the Marine Corps. One was a friend that actually I met in college that was in the Army. But honestly, I can't even remember the numbers of how many people I served with that committed suicide, but it's more than 2 dozen.
And the military, it's astronomically high.
And it definitely, I didn't realize like what the impact of that was on my psyche until, I got out of the Marine Corps, and it kind of like it what brought it on, and the weight of all of that loss and all that struggle was like I think what a lot of people experience when they get out of the military is like the reality of like coming back and being a civilian. For one, you're kind of starting over. It's like sometimes like you might be in a job field where you get lucky enough and you get out and maybe you start working for the government, or you like work with a job field that recognizes your time in the military. And that's like not what I did. That's not what a lot of people do. So you get out and like you're starting over, and you come from a tenure of something where you had all these expectations and all this, everything set up for you, and then also you have all of this responsibility to like nothing, or even just like the respect. So like like a lot of people, like I got out and like ended up in the restaurant industry, managing restaurants. I was a cook in a restaurant for a little bit. Then I ended up managing a theater, Unicorn Theater, which is a live play theater here in Kansas City, for like 4 years, and like it wasn't until 2018 that like I really kind of truly came to terms that I was like suffering from PTSD, because I never like mentioned anything to the VA, like a lot of people, because I didn't deploy. I wasn't a combat veteran, so like, and I think unfortunately the facts of the matter is a lot of people milk it, and a lot of people like take away the potential of benefits for somebody who really fucking needs it and deserves it. It's not like saying like anybody who like, you don't have to like deployed to like have trauma, suffer from the military, because that's the reality of like what the things that I dealt with is what a lot of fucking people deal with. All of my friends and all the people that I was stationed with that are still alive still experience the same thing I did too.
Yeah. Well, with all grace, there's going to be abuse, but one thing you said is that maybe it wasn't just maybe you didn't know I certainly, when I was having some things going on, I still don't consider them PTSD just because I know what other people view that as. They're just unexplainable symptoms that might have been hard for you to categorize, but you know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely,
as far as you
yeah.
beginning to accept that you were having those symptoms, do you remember like the first thing that was like, oh, maybe this is what they're calling PTSD?
Yeah, I definitely noticed things after I got out. Like I've always been able to keep face in any like situation. Like I've always been able to like keep tact. Like even if I'm fucking like losing my mind, I can keep tact. Or like I could fucking crack a joke when I'm like fuming inside. Like I've always had that ability. Well, it became very heavy when I got out of the military. Because like for one, I was like went into the restaurant industry, like managing restaurants. I'd never done that before. Just like a happenstance that this all happened. So like I knew I was being undervalued, and I was working way too fucking much, for how much I was getting paid. So like I was already fucking pissed, and I'm like I just like left the Marine Corps and like stepped into this, and I almost went back in. Like in 2016, like I went and actually sat down with the recruiter again. I was like, what can I do? And I was offered orders, and I turned them down because I sat and thought about it a little bit more. I was like, why'd I get out? And the reason, because a lot of it was like the politics. Honestly, a lot of it was the politics, and like the reality too is like when I got out of the Marine Corps, I got out on an early release. So at the time, all of the military branches were downsizing. So what the Marine Corps was doing was if you had less than a year on your current contract, active contract, you could apply to get out an early release. So I applied. Well, it didn't even leave my chain of command. So I applied again, and it got kicked back to me. And like so finally, like I went to my chief warrant officer. I was like, why does this keep getting kicked back? And they're like, well, they want to know why you want to get out. You're a tier 1 Marine. You can kind of do whatever you want. Why do you want to get out? So I had to go sit down, like talk to my CO, my sergeant major. And they're like, okay, we'll sign this and we'll send it up to headquarters, but we want you to apply for another job field. So, like, what would you want to do? I was like, MARSOC,
Which is
Marine Corps Special Forces and the Marine Corps Raider Team.
okay.
So I went ahead and applied, and I got orders for both.
Wow.
I get approved for the early release, and I got orders for MARSOC.
What
And
what a road. I mean,
Yeah,
that's your options. You can either get out or you can go be a special operations
and
raider.
honestly, at the time, like it was definitely lucrative because for one, once you complete, it was a $90,000 sign-on bonus
to do the special ops.
Yeah. So like I completed out like I just bought like a brand new Jeep. I got like a Rubicon like a year before I was planning on getting out. So like I had this like massive fucking car payment and shit. So I was like, yeah, I could just pay this thing off. So I really thought about it, but at the time too, I had matured enough to understand that wasn't the path for me. And also like I had matured enough to see like other people that had went that route that were fucked. And like, I kept like telling myself, like I remember like I actually had like a conversation with my mom, like I was like Wayne, and I was like, honestly, I don't think I have a problem with killing people, but if they're the right people and I feel like in that job field that I won't always get the say, and I wouldn't be okay with that, so like I'm not gonna like rob somebody else because of a political matter. And unfortunately, a lot of people in those job fields get pushed that route. And and also too the attrition of it is like it's a lot of people fucking die. It's like I wasn't looking for that to happen, and so I had like a couple weeks to ponder it, and like I finally like went. I was like, I'm getting out. So I got out and I went, and the plan was I was gonna go back to school. So I did, and I went back for a semester, and like I was like back in the same thing, like having fucking PTSD from that. I was like, I dropped out of here. Why am I back? And also, I'm like 26 or something at the time. So like I was all these fucking dumbass 18-year-olds.
You're the old guy again.
It's like, what the fuck is this? So I ended up like dropping out again, and just found myself in the restaurant industry, started managing restaurants, and just did that for like a couple years, and like ended up becoming a cook at another restaurant, and it carpentry for a little bit.
So you make the impossible decision to get out, which a lot of people, their ego keeps them in. No matter what, they know they should get out, but their ego keeps them in, and you end up in the restaurant industry, which ultimately leads you to discover your current passion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So from what I understand, you're working in the restaurant industry, and that's how you were introduced to psilocybin.
Yeah, and that was more. That wasn't the restaurant industry. That was the happenstance of the restaurant I worked at. So, I went from, I was the GM at a restaurant called Tortilla Ranch. It's in Overland Park. It's similar to Chipotle. It's owned by the owner of Spin Pizza and the owner of Jose Peppers. So they made this joint venture and opened up this restaurant. Real cool place. Been a manager for a while, and honestly, I was done with management when I accepted that job. Like, I just didn't want to do it anymore. But like, I was like, I need to do something. Seems like decent pay. And when I took that job, I did it for like a year and then quit. And I was like, at that time, like I was already kind of spiraling. I was burnt out. I didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do.
This is 2017?
Yeah, 2017. And then, yeah, into 2016. So anyways, I find this place downtown or in Midtown called Cafe Gratitude. It was like an all organic vegan restaurant. So I went in there and applied just for whatever position they had open. They had a cook position open. And I was like, sweet, I'll take it. And so like I went from making like $65,000 to making $20,000. That Jeep that I've been holding on to and making the $700 a month payment on, I just ended up selling. Just like, and I literally just skateboarded everywhere for the better part of like 2 years and just went back and forth to that restaurant. Well, anyways, that restaurant specifically, what it was known for, and like a reason why it was like kind of a popular gem to the city, outside of it being like an organic vegan restaurant, was just a community-based type of place. It's like you'd go in and like they'd like say affirmations to you, like as you're sitting there, say, "What are you grateful for today?" And like the meals had like names like that, like "Oh, I am grateful" is like one of the meals, so it was kind of like a hippie joint.
Yeah.
So like I got, I've kind of immersed myself into that space, so they got this gritty ass Marine rubbing shoulders with these people that are a little bit, a little quieter than I am, not near as rambunctious, but also people that had experiences that I hadn't experienced, and so I built relationships with, several people that I was working with, and about a year after I was working there, they asked if I wanted to come do mushrooms with them one night. We went over to this house, and I'd never really talked to any of them about this, but I think like they had collectively as a group knew I could use it. Because like it kind of started off like we were all sitting in a room and everybody takes a little mushrooms, and it was chocolates, like everybody gets like a chocolate. And I didn't really know what to expect of it. I'd never had mushrooms like that before. So, we're sitting there, and there's like 8 of us sitting in this house, and we, kind of start going through our own thing. And that's really when like I had like the recollection, like, oh, you're fucking suffering from trauma. Like that's like explains everything you're fucking like that's happening to you right now. Whereas like I kind of shut off all of the thought of or notion of any of that prior, because like everything I ever did was built off of grit. That I have like plenty of times and like have just running past trauma because I had the ability to do so. So like I didn't like allow things to weigh on me because I just tear through them. But you can only do that so long until your calluses tear. Like that's like what started to happen, and that was like the unveil for me. Like all the people that I worked with during this period didn't really see the dark side of me. But there's definitely clues. And I think enough so that was how I got invited into this space. And my wife now, partner at the time, she definitely saw the dark side, because that was like where I released all the trauma and everything that was at home. So like I'd be faking it for everybody at work, and I'd come home and like we'd be off, and then she would see the dark side. I'd be fucking breaking shit, punching holes through walls, doing all the stupid shit people do. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people in relationships is at some point you become too fucking comfortable because they're still around. and I think she knew my worth, and like she stuck with me through that period and that process, and we definitely like had our turmoils on both sides. So like I definitely noticed I was having issues, but I was like writing them off as like the circumstances, not the inner being, So, and like that was the introduction to my own trauma. So like I have this mushroom journey, and I'm literally just kind of reliving everything that was weighing on me, and I was at a point in my life where I was looking for what I needed to do, not what I wanted to do, but what I needed to do. And that's when I had this recollection. Like this next day, I went online. I started like looking up what's legal. Can I grow these? Spores are legal. And I saw like just going down the rabbit hole. And I literally the next day, like I found a website that sold spores, and I got like 5 different strains. And that just, melded to me. I'm like, this is legal? Sweet. All right, I'm going to order 5 different strains right now. I'll try growing them. And I kind of just started from there, and it started with the base curiosity of like that experience was so strong. Like I need to like, this is fascinated my interest. Like this is like the fact that it just had this ability to do this within my own consciousness and shift me within this one experience. Like the next day I was like, okay, this is it. And I didn't look back, and I kind of like start like anybody does as a hobby, learning as much as possible, and then using the aptitude of everything I learned prior to that to like build the structure of it to make it not look as sloppy as the guy that did it before, and then also like slowly through time finding out there's other people that have done the same, and it's been able to slowly build it into something where it's like not that it's something that I'm just passionate about, but something that I know I need to do. There's not question of it. Because I'm pretty confident there's very few people in this state or in this country that could go toe-to-toe with me in mycology as far as the aptitude of what all of it is. From the basis of how it is to cultivate to how it can move you spiritually. Because I've dove myself into it very deeply. To the means of which it is shaping my entire existence. As it should. And that's why my passion's so strong in it, is because it's, for one, it allowed me to realize the things that were broken in me and to address them. And then, fortunately for myself, having the aptitude of my own being to be able to do something with it. And even there's been so many things, wrenches that have been thrown in my cog over the last several years that to divert and go another way, especially in the means of financially, I probably should have, but yet here I am, still doing it. And there's been so many people that have like stepped up to support me, just because this is authentic. I don't try to like hide anything. Like I do what I do for the whole purpose of allowing people the access to help themselves, because that's exactly what this can do. No different than anything that allows your consciousness to open up and see yourself. And see that you're also something that's bigger than yourself. And that's where my path is now. And, and in the means of like my entire intention with what I do is for this growth to be provided for everybody who's interested. And at least have it as an option. And that's kind of the beauty of the work of what I do now, is like I can sell the spores, and what people do with them is their choice. I can't tell them to grow them. I can't say to do any of that, but at least they can have an option. And also, there's a reason why laws are written that way. Not everybody that writes a law has bad intentions. There's always like a leeway from most things that are degrading to us over whole, that you can go so far as to make a business out of it off of something that is deemed illegal when it's finished.
Illegal when it's finished.
That's the one.
Yeah, sorry.
Clarify.
Can you take me back? That was heavy, man. That was heavy. I want to say, dude, the introspective identification that you think those people at that restaurant knew you needed that is really beautiful. Well, because if they really did identify that, they change the course of your fucking life forever, man.
I think so.
If they truly identified that you needed that and it wasn't just, off the hip, they literally changed the course of your life, and so many people who you've now changed their life for fucking ever.
Absolutely. And like I said, I've never actually had conversations with anybody about that, like, specifically.
Yeah.
For one, it was definitely people in the same means of myself that wouldn't look for a thank you. I mean, I wouldn't. That's now. I'm not looking for anybody to say thank you. If it helps you, that's thanks. I mean, what? I don't need my ego to, like, be fluffed because somebody's gonna come say thank you or, like, tell me, "Oh, you changed my life." That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, if you've done that for somebody, and it's like, even if that was their intention, like this could help them. Like, collectively, that's like what happened, which I think that's what happened. And it makes sense from the space I was in that's what happened. I don't. It's definitely something that they'd probably experienced themselves, and they knew, like, here's somebody. Well, we've already had this experience. We're going to be having this experience anyways, with or without them. Yeah. See what it does. So, like, it was probably one of those things. And, like, that's, like, how I, like, chalked it up, and even how I look at it now, like, helping people or providing that space is, like, once you understand it, that's what you want to do. And it's not like something that you're looking for thanks. It's much more than that, because it will come back. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, and why I've continued to, like, stride through the work that I do is, like, the last couple of years have been fucking financial nightmare. It's reality of, like, running a business, and, I rent multiple properties, like, I have 2 leases, that I'm paying like $4,000 a month on, just in the leases, and that's not with utilities and everything else. And then the overhead of my business, there's a lot that goes into it. I have a lot of overhead, and it's very difficult to keep up with that. And a couple years ago, the house that we were living in, my landlord doubled my rent on me out of nowhere. So I was doing okay, and then, like, within that year, like, it zapped all my savings.
Right.
So it's, like, been nothing but a grind since then, just to keep it going. But it is. I mean, that's the thing, is, like, that's kind of been the beauty of the process, is, like, even through all the hiccups, I'm still flourishing. And it's like, I definitely had some stress. I definitely had a fucking heart attack. But
Literally.
But the thing is like, a lot of that was the basis of me not controlling what I could control. Because, like anybody, like, just builds up anxiety, or how depression happens. It doesn't just happen. Very rarely is somebody just chemically off. It's more that you have been trained into something that is not conducive for you. And the way to fix that is environmentally. Change what you're consuming in a whole. Like, not just the food that you're eating, but, like, what you watch. What are you listening to? Who you're surrounding yourself by. What is the environment you're in? And taking the time to, like, actually take those things serious across the board. And unfortunately, that's something like that's much easier said than done. Because you can't control your workspace. You can't, but you can. This and the medicine of something like ketamine or something like mushrooms, that can help you realize that you do have control of your perception. And then relationships can change with that. And that's the thing too, is, like, another thing that's changed for me on my personal is I've always been, like, the happy-go-lucky guy. I've always, like, had that, like, always been fiery, fucking goofball. Like, I've always been the clown. And I still am. But I think a lot more now. And if I clown now, there's a point to it. Whereas before, it was just throwing stuff out there, and people would laugh because it was stupid. So that's a huge difference. And I think that's what wakes up in everybody that takes their time to heal themselves. And stuff like mushrooms, stuff like ketamine, stuff like DMT, acid, all these. There's so many different modes and methods that do the same thing for your consciousness. Anything that allows you to open up your mind can realize how fucked your mind is. But also that your vessel can fix it.
Even marijuana is a little bit scary to most people, including myself, because the humility to it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you can take even a small dose of marijuana, and you've realized, holy smokes, I can't believe I acted like that.
I'm not trying to incriminate myself, but whatever. Honestly, for me, I'd have a proclivity for anger, and I can get mad just like anybody else does, like road rage. We live in a city, man, and fucking people drive like assholes.
Yeah.
And anytime I find myself in a place or a space where somebody's done something to piss me off, I'll take a drag. Real quick, I always got like a little pinch hit or something on me. I'll take that little quick hit, and immediately my perception will be like, what the fuck's that guy's problem? I wonder why they're doing this.
A schema shift.
Yeah. And it happens immediately. Very quickly, and that's the beauty of cannabis. And then also the power of cannabis as well, is like using it responsibly like that. It could be a great tool to keeping yourself in check. So that's, especially if you do it in a means like that, you can have an overconsumption of anything. You don't need to eat 100 milligrams. Yeah. I'm just being a nut. So
you can over-exercise. You can overeat.
Absolutely.
Everything could be abused.
Everything's moderation.
Yep.
So it's like even the means of like psychedelics, like don't need to overdo shit. It's like, and absolutely when I had that, after I had that first experience, I kind of started chasing them. Because at the time, a lot of it was like I was reading so much and consuming so much information about psychedelics and like what is already known, what is theorized, et cetera, that like I started chasing those experiences because I hadn't had them yet, like experiences with entities or experiences in different realms, et cetera. So like I was doing crazy doses of things unneededly, honestly, in like retrospect. But also the beauty of it is like even through the process of those times, only seemed to make my mind stronger. Didn't really seem to be any degradation. I mean, I'm sure there's probably something, but I definitely got far more good at it. I mean, that also kind of just goes to show the efficacy of things if you do them properly. That's also the other bit, is like doing things and understanding dosage, knowing what you have, and then ensuring that whatever you consume is actually what you're consuming.
Well, and discovering the upper limits. It's not that you want to say it's necessary for somebody else, but for you as a recommender, off the record, of course, like you can only go on your experiences, but at least now what some of the upper levels are.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you had that first experience, what can you recall about it? And maybe you can't at all, but as far as just maybe even the acute feelings, what can you recall about sitting there? And do you know what type of dose you initially did? And was it caps, or was it in vegetable capsules? Did you take the actual plant?
So
it
was
mushroom.
It was chocolates.
Fungi.
It was chocolates somebody made. I don't know exactly.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who made it, but it was 3.5 grams. So a reasonable dose, especially for like somebody who like had never really taken mushrooms like that before. So, yeah, I remember like the oncoming. So like as it first came on, like I'm starting to see the perceptual changes. So at first, like it kind of just seemed funny, like the cartoons play it out. Yeah, like that, like everything started to shift, and I started to see, like, I was looking around the room, like people started turning into gestures and stuff like that. So like it kind of started off like that, which is the chemical process of your brain starting to process things. It distorts. So I started it started off light like that, and we're all sitting next to each other. Everybody starts to come on, and then everybody started to peel off in their own spaces of the house. And then, as it started to actually come on for me, I felt like a dread. So I kind of did the same. And I went and found myself a corner, and I was there for probably a couple hours. Literally just going through playbacks. Literally just revisiting trauma and looking at my current time of survivor's guilt, wondering why the fuck. My friends decided to take their fucking lives. Why did they get to that point where I definitely had found myself at that point at multiple times in my life, even when I was younger. I felt myself not wanting, even when I was doing well on paper, You know, like even when I was like in high school, like even when because I always had pushback. I was always not cheap, always. Like I was in like high school, for example. I was diehard into BMX, and I ran because like I needed to do something that would get me into college, you know. And that's like my parents like made me do that, but they didn't support my cycling whatsoever. So like all the time that I was doing anything outside of that sport, I was on my bike, and there was really nobody else, you know. So like I was like a loner, and I had plenty of friends, but it was mostly acquaintances, and I was kind of always like that. Always, like even going into like to college was kind of the same thing. You know, like I said, I went in to an NAIA school where I was definitely a D1 athlete. And it's like not saying like the guys on my team didn't have talent. It was just talent comes in levels, you know, and I should have been somewhere else. It's like I ended up going to this other, you know, settling for this school. And like, you know, I come in as a freshman, get an All-American. Like my teammates didn't really like me all that much, you know, and it kind of like forced me to be cocky. You know, like they kind of expected it of me. So like they like bring it out of me sometimes. And I just didn't like myself. You know, and then finally I found myself in the Marine Corps and got challenged in the same ways, in a lot of ways, but also had like already been through it. It's like I figured out like how to settle with it, you know, and like also be patient, you know, like be patient, like to understand like everybody's living their life. Everybody's like finding their own stride and things. Like everybody's in turmoil almost all the time. And that's like what we got to like take the time to realize, and like something that I slowly got to learn through the process of all of the things that led up to my current state of being. You know, it's like it fortunately is like, you know, you can look at things as like what's meant to be, or, you know, and honestly, I didn't used to think that things would happen, you know, like that there's no plan for anything, you know. I definitely don't think that anymore. There's so many things that have like happened in my life that just don't make sense. Even on like on all matters. Like when I was in my late 20s, I was starting to have like cognitive issues because I had a lot of brain trauma, like just from cycling, mostly from BMX, blackout, knockouts, dozens of fucking times. And I was like having some massive cognitive decline. So it was like right around the same time that I come across mushrooms and have this experience is not only when I needed on my mental means, but literally my physical body was asking for it. So like I kind of got to heal everything all at once, and that's kind of like the beauty of it as well. Is like it helps you heal your physical means so you can accept the spiritual means a little easier. And that's definitely something that like through the process that is like opening up spirituality, and like because I was raised Mormon, and I left the church when I was like 19. And they kind of bounced around like just non-denominational churches, the Catholic Church, bounced around just like all Christian religions, and studied a few other things, and none of them made sense. And it wasn't like until I started this journey again that I started to come back and recognize there's reason. There's something more than this, than me. You know, I'm just a cog in this, but also I'm a pretty fucking big piece if I try.
What makes sense to you now?
That what I do is right. Even when it sucks.
I mean, as far as spiritually.
Oh. The things that I've experienced, especially in states, like under the influence with mushrooms specifically. I mean, I'm completely candid to like talk about, but they're fucking crazy. But were real enough to let me know that they're real. Things like that, like my own spiritual being, like what I am, is I think we all live multiple lives in different forms, and I think we all are all spiritual beings. We are all part of a higher consciousness, but we're also in that higher consciousness, a cell within that. So every single one of us is something different, you know, in this realm, in this body, in these antennas that we are. So I've had a multitude of experiences where I've like come back and seen myself what I was before, and how all those things play out to like all the things that I've been able to do within my life that just don't make sense. Like how many things that I've just like naturally been able to do that just don't make sense. Like the fact that I can just like, I could go a year without running. I could go out and run a 430 mile right now with my fucking boots on. I just understand. That's why I can do it. I'm going to hurt afterwards because I'm human, but I understand. I know what it is to make that stride. And not everybody can do that. And that's like something that I've learned, but also I think everybody's far more capable than what they think they are. And I'm not the only person who's special. Everybody is. So that's kind of what I've come to learn and humble myself in is I can also like starting jiu-jitsu. I can do in jiu-jitsu with you guys. Like I'd never like done grappling like that until I started doing those classes. And being challenged in that way was awesome because for one, it was humbling, but there was like no part of it, especially like doing that sport. There's really not a lot of room for ego. You know, 'cause it just doesn't last long. You know, of course, there's
Outside of competition, there's almost none.
Yeah, because it doesn't. It's not conducive.
Yeah,
it's not conducive. You can still fucking challenge each other and get a rise with having respect, and that's kind of like been the beauty of the process of like training that way. Is like fizzing out, like seeing another way my physical and my mental mind can work together, while other people are doing the same thing. And keeping up with me or me keeping up with them, you know, like rolling with you, you know, there's levels to it, you know, there's levels to all of it and figuring out like how I can use that as a tool for me to strengthen what I'm doing outside of that, you know, and like, it's especially I love jiu-jitsu and I love martial arts. And it's definitely something like I want to do for the long run. But where I'm at in my life is also in a means of like I'm going to do what's necessary for my work before I play on anything else. So it's like I'm allowed like the heart attack and this time out is like a time to actually like heal everything that I need to. So when I come back, I'm not at any loss. But also everything that I've accomplished between has still got accomplished without a distraction. You know, so it's like everything does happen for a reason. Like, I mean, especially if you take the time to look and piece those things together, even if it didn't, there's too many coincidences for you not to be thankful. And that's like what I've learned through the process of everything that I do and why I continue to do what I do is, you know, obviously the legalities for mushrooms. I think it's like been almost a decade now that they've been putting up bills in Missouri for some type of access for psychedelics. And it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere.
And I wanted to ask you about that. There's two bills that when I was researching you, some of the bills that came up, I wrote them down, like the HB 2288, which I read was a bill in Kansas.
Yes.
And then there was also this House Bill 1176. What is the holdup? What, you know, as far as I know you've done some lobbying and some activist work, what do you think is, outside of the obvious that the government doesn't want this stuff legalized because of big pharma, outside of that, what is the acute holdups and what do you think needs to be done in order to get some of these truthfully, these treatment options to people?
I think that there's a multitude of things that are hold up. There is a reality. For one, absolutely, pharmaceutical companies are stumping it. Absolutely. Of course. Because if you have something like mushrooms or anything made legal, of which people can access the same way of which they access their SSRI and they get healed by it instead of a fucking Band-Aid, then you got a real problem for the people that make that medicine, don't you? And then also in the means of something that you can't patent, like a mushroom or a toad. You know, yeah, you can synthesize things, and they do. And also almost all of the clinical trials that have been done with mushrooms are using synthetic. So
is that a problem?
Yeah, because there's a difference.
Okay.
Molecularly, there is a difference. And, you know, they like to say, you know, so for example, what's mostly being used is something called 4-ACO-DMT, which when it's processed through the body and processed through the liver, it becomes psilocin, which is what psilocybin turns into in the body. And that's what actually induces the trip itself, is the psilocin. So, they state, this is supposed to break down and turn into this psilocin. It's supposed to have this. It's not. There's something lacking from it. But now that's the unfortunate part, though, as well, is like it's not saying like that is a bad pharmaceutical drug, because it's not. Because there's been plenty of clinical evidence to show that its own efficacy. But what ends up happening is they trawl all in as mushrooms. It's not. There's a different experience between the two. For one, you have something that has a synergy of a multitude of different alkaloids and tryptamines that are present that we still don't even understand yet. And then you have an isolation of one. And then they call it the same thing. Well, obviously it's not. There's a thing that synergizes between them that you're going to get much more from taking the mushroom that has evolved with us, that our brains literally respond to because we've been eating them for a long fucking time.
Is there any correlation? Is there any type of similarity or correlation that could be seen as an issue, like with distillate THC versus taking a full spectrum plant? Kind of what you're saying is that they're producing a synthetic that's only giving you one side of what the organic might have a full spectrum of benefits. Am I tracking it all? Is that kind of similar?
Well, because, like, give you an example. So, like, on the one means of, like, what would be holding them back, past the means of pharmaceutical companies, the legitimate things that are holding it back. Dosing, something like mushrooms, is a little more difficult if you're, like, just using the fruiting body, because it drastically changes. So, for example, if, like, you grow a strain like Golden Teacher and I grow a strain like Golden Teacher, that doesn't mean the potency is going to be the same between what each one of us grew. The conditions that were provided are going to make that potency. So mine might be a little more potent, yours might be a little more less, or whatever, vice versa. So because of that, they can go off the deploy. Well, it's easier to have this synthetic where there's going to be the exact dose every time. That's how we look at it. We've been trained to look at it in modern medicine because we've allowed corporations to be our medicine. How did we survive how many hundreds of fucking thousands of years we've been alive on this goddamn planet up to this fucking point? The pharmaceutical company? Is that what got us here? Or was it the fucking shaman that every single one of our cultures practiced with? I think it was the shaman. And I think the pharmaceutical companies are trying to fuck us up. And they do bring up legitimate points that can that can make everybody stop and think, well, we don't want to jump the gun. For what?
They jumped the gun in COVID.
Well, that all comes down to, like, how deep you want to go with your conspiracies.
You don't have to go very deep.
No, because I think, unfortunately, I think all of how we live is a psyop. I think there's plenty of people that know far more than we do, and then I think there's plenty of people like pharmaceutical companies that are literally playing a game off it because it's how they excel, and they don't give a shit about you and I. And that's the fact of the matter for all of them. And unfortunately, what will be dragged up, and like some of the legitimate reasons that they'll put out is, for one, at the end of the day, mushrooms and cannabis are two different things. Okay, the same way as Everclear and fucking Budweiser are two different things. Both alcohol, right? Okay, but they're not the same thing. But guess what? You can buy both in the same fucking store. Now, the difference is we've had all this time as a culture to accept that there's those two different things. So people have learned to see what their limit is. There hasn't been the time for society to see what the mushroom is, or to see what acid is, or to see in the time that it was chaos because people still didn't know what it was. So, you have the hippie revolution and everybody's fucking popping acid and getting crazy. And what is noticed is they have become more docile in the means of they don't want to fight, but also they're not going to conform. And if you have people not conform, what happens to the corporations when they're not buying all their shit? And that's just everything. So, the reality to it is, like, all the things that are holding it back, it's not just pharmaceutical, it's everything. Because if you have people consciously open their minds and they're like, you know what, maybe that fucking steak I keep buying from Price Chopper that's packed full of fucking hormones, not to get after you, Price Chopper, but all of you, is fucking poisoning me. And why the fuck am I eating that? That's everything. Everything we consume is poison. And when you have something that wakes you up enough for you to realize that and take action, all industries start to have a real fucking problem. Anything that doesn't work for us that we've been told does is going to go to the wayside. So yeah, there's a lot of things I think that are in threat with legalization. So that's definitely one thing. And also, unfortunately, in the means of this state, I think like the lobbyist that has been working on this for the last several years, good guy. And there's a lot of good people, legitimately good people, but at the end of the day, it's game. Okay? At the end of the day, it's game. And I'm not going to talk ill on anybody, but at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's a game. And when they continuously produce the same fucking bills, which you can look at them this year after year after year, and they change a few terms here and there, and nothing's happening, but yet it continuously makes it through House committee vote, and this keeps getting stopped at the Senate. Come on. Like, for me, I don't have the time to, like, put my energy in something that's not going to work. And for me, it's like what I do is much more than focusing on the law. I'm not above it, and I don't think anybody should be. But also, I think I'm smart, and I think I've taken the time to understand what the law is and to operate within the best means of which I can to stick with the law. And I think that everybody has the right to do so, and that's why the law is written like it is. And the beauty of not everybody in politics is evil. Not every bill has been written that to hold us back completely. It just takes a little bit of time to read it and see that there's space for you to make things possible, and is built that way for a reason. That's how industries are made. And at the end of the day, too, is like this is much more than just an industry. You know, psychedelics isn't an industry. It's a means of which we evolved. And we don't take it serious enough. And there's a lot of distraction within all these fucking bills when people could just do what they do, regardless. And then there's a multitude of different ways that you can go about it. You know, so for me, like, for a while, you know, obviously I want to make access available for everybody. And not lawfully. I don't think people should have to, like, look over their shoulder because they want to help themselves or help somebody else. That's pretty fucking stupid. But the reality is, that's what has to happen right now because the law states that. And at the end of the day, nobody's exempt from that. Nobody's exempt from the lawman coming and kicking their door down. You know, so everything takes understanding, and also understanding of, like, if you plan on making a business in this, don't make a business planning on a bill being passed. So, like, for me, like, that was never my intent. There was definitely, like, an understanding at the, you know, the get-go, like, when I started lobbying, was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Bill gets passed, and I can get licensing. Then I can, like, sell the mushrooms that I grow. Cool. You know, like, I could, like, legally do that, you know, instead of, like, having to, like, have things go to the waste. You know, so, like, yeah, that's a lucrative. But at the end of the day, it's like, at all bills, bill is a means of control. Like the rescheduling of cannabis to class 3 now federally. It's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, like how like that happened, like it seemed like it's in pretty good favor of people, of the entire populace of this country for the most part. But also you got to read all of it. There's always something where like they get their piece.
Yeah, they have their hands on every part of it, or at least some part of it that's going to be beneficial to them. Nobody's going to do something for you as a favor. It generally seems that way.
Unfortunately, no. And then honestly, and that's a lot of what the current state is for legalization of any of it. And it's like each state keeps jumping back and forth helping each other. Because it's a game between each state. Like constituents getting sent here to there just to have different conversations. Like, well, what are you doing over here? You know, and that's good that we have all these different groups and municipalities like coming together on a greater cause, even outside of their own state. But at the end of the day, it's like people should rally. That doesn't happen enough. Like, for one, like, how many times I've gone and, like, sat on bills and shared testimony, telling my fucking story, and, like, how it can be relatable to almost every other fucking veteran out there that deserves access to these things. You know, you pull on the heartstring of the House committee that you're talking to. But then what? Like, how much more evidence do we need when the clinical efficacy has already been proven? But what more do we need? And especially in the means for veterans, like 22 a day, that's just a guessing number. It's probably far more than that. That's just what's typically reported.
Yeah.
Because most veterans aren't doing well. How many veterans do you know that are doing as good as they should?
How many have served their country, whether they were an admin or not? That wasn't their option, and now they're skateboarding to a restaurant.
I mean, it's true though.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
because
the
reality for everybody is, like, for one, at the end of the day, it's like, regardless of your administration or you're the infantryman, you're still in the Marine Corps, or you're still in the Army, you're still in the Navy. So, like, you still are under order. You know, like, you have to do what you're told to do. I mean, that's how it works. You sign a fucking contract, you do what you're told to do.
That's a blanket of anxiety that causes, microfractures of trauma, no matter what.
Absolutely. You know, and a lot of it's like conditioning and stuff like that. And the same reason for, like I said, when I got out and I kind of knew that I was having issues, that I never said anything, was because I was, like, chalking up all those anxieties and all the traumas that I had based or that had led up to that point. I was thinking of the means that I'm not a combat veteran and this can't be PTSD. Because a lot of people do think that legitimately. And also, at the end of the day, it's like, to some extent, be a man about it. Be tough. If you're a fucking Marine, have some grit. You know, like, don't, like, go take away time from somebody that, like, really was in the shit, or take away benefit, or hop in line before somebody who was getting shot at, or watch their fucking buddy get their head blown off. Don't jump the line for them just because you want something. So it's like, but also at the end of the day, it's like, if you served in the military and you did legitimately get some type of trauma, that's there. All of those disability ratings and everything like that are there for a reason. Because at the end of the day, even if you didn't deploy, that deployment for the person who did wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for you staying back. So it's like, even as an administrator, like, when I was stationed in North Carolina, I actually got orders to deploy. Another unit requested that I come with them. And I was given orders, and I actually ended up turning the orders down because I was being attacked by everybody that I was stationed with, that I worked with, because the unit that we worked with was a non-deployable unit. And I'd only been there for like a year and a half, and there are some guys that are there for like 3.5, 4 years that wanted to deploy but didn't have the opportunity because they didn't have another unit asked for them. So, I had all these people, like, coming after me, like, well, how'd you get these orders? Like, I didn't fucking write them myself. Somebody asked for me. So I just went to my CO, and I actually, like, right before I got the orders to deploy, I just got accepted for the Marine Corps running team. So I was like, you know what? I'll have another opportunity to deploy. If, like, that's, like, what needs to, if, like, that's my route, like, I will have probably an opportunity more than all these other guys ever will. So I ended up, like, transferring my orders to somebody else. Because, the unit that I worked for was the headquarters for the base. So, like, our job was to hold the fort when everybody else deployed. But at the time when you're in, like, you're not going to think that. You're just like, oh, well, everybody else just gets to deploy. It's like, well, also, you might have literally dodged a bullet. I mean, so there's perspective to all of it. It's like, and as I was in, luckily I had enough trials and was, like, coming to my own being. Like, I would, like, even in those moments, I was able, like, to keep my collective because I saw that there was already something else for me on the other side. So every time, like, I had an opportunity fall through, something else came. There's always something there. There's always like something being passed my way. And how many just like random fucking jobs I had when I was in the Marine Corps that took me out of that administration was crazy. I mean, I had like 7 different job titles at once. Like I was the coach for the running, my base running team for a while. I was on the Marine Corps running team. I worked for FEMA for a little bit while I was in. All these just random fucking jobs, just because I was definitely in a space where I probably should have been in another job field, but it also allowed me the time to like realize, oh, I could do all this.
So, we're talking about the holdups to get this stuff through. You've been an activist and you've spoken at quite a few conferences. What are the major points? Like, if you want to try to break through to somebody, if you're trying to cross that line with them, say that they're completely, they don't want this at all or they don't agree with it, but they're willing to at least expose themselves to your speaking. What is the most concrete evidence that you show? And is it a PubMed study? Is it anecdotal? What is it that you try to drive?
All the
drive
above.
their
So,
decision
like,
making?
for example, like every time like a bill is being presented, always there's going to be like clinical evidence that's being presented with that. So like the board's going to see everything that's being presented, not just the bill, but like anything that has to go along with that bill to like show, hey, there's clinical efficacy for this. This is the reason why. And then you have people like advocates like myself or lobbyists that step forward and share testimony, of which they'll speak anecdotal and clinical. So like for me, like obviously getting experience both, and then a multitude of means, like a business thereof, I've always been able to like share a multitude of ways of it. And then even like in obviously when you're like talking to politicians, a lot of them might be Christian or like fundamentalist or stuff like that. So like I'd even like mentioning spirituality, which there's a truth to that. There's a spiritual means to all these things that are really at least something that allows your processing to realize like your vessel's not it. You're just a part of it. And that's what it seems like a lot of these things, no, not a lot of them, all of them do, if you do them properly and you do them in the like right set and setting. So, I mean, honestly, like the holdups, I don't know, honestly, and that's why it's been about a year and a half since I did anything on the lobbying side. And a lot of it, like I stepped away because for one, I was tired of seeing the repetitive of nothing happening. And I felt like I wasn't really playing like the best part I could, whereas I can just, and also like I was like putting time into something I wasn't getting paid for one. And a lot of times like I'd be driving all over the state to like do all these different things, and I literally just couldn't afford it. So like I was sacrificing time that I didn't have and money I didn't have, and I got a family. It's like the reality of me keeping up with that was something that isn't good. If it was my hand just doing it, I'd make it get done. But that can't be. I can't be the only one doing it. And it's not. And the people that are working on it still are good people. They're not bad people. But it's a game that I'm not willing to play. And then there's other ways I can do what I feel is necessary without that bill being passed. And then when it does, then fucking awesome for the people that made that possible. But like, I don't need to ride on those coattails.
Yeah, and you're there if they need you.
Yeah, and I am. And that's the thing too, is like if anybody reaches out for me and like asks me for anything, I'm going to show up.
What's the relationship that you, and maybe even if you don't have it now, but what is the relationship you have with a consumer or somebody that needs help? What should they do right now? They're in Missouri. What recommended steps do you take to get somebody help? Or like, is there...
Well, like in the means of like veterans, fortunately, there's a lot of like veteran non-for-profits, stuff like Heroics Heart Project, Grunt Style Foundation. There's a multitude of non-for-profits that provide access, legal access for people suffering. Now, some of them might be restrictions of like they have to be combat veteran. So like for example, Heroics Heart Project, I think I believe they still require you to be a combat veteran. So like, but that's a whole lot of people that they can provide access for legally. So how they do it is like this non-for-profit. They typically get money, and they'll send people to places where it is legal. So like to actual like shaman, and have tremendous records with that. So like if you're a veteran, don't have to go far. Just Google search where, and you'll find it. There's a multitude of different non-for-profits and stuff within the state that can help you. So there's already stuff there that can help you get that access. Now, you probably can't do it here legally, but also in the means of that is like conversations allow that possibility to even be something that could happen. So like start by asking questions, and then also too like how many people like I have had like just randomly reach out to me. I'm completely cool with it. So it's like somebody like wants a direct or like who would I call? Just reach out to me. I'm cool with it. Like somebody just shoots me a random message on Facebook or freaking finds my number somehow, which I've had. Or people like emailed me. I'm like, what's this? If somebody asks for something and I'm available to help them, I'm going to. So, and I'll point them in whatever direction they need to go.
Is there a role model right now, whether it's a state or a country, that you, especially when you were lobbying, that you closely monitored to see how they were doing things to show like this works?
Not really. Not precisely, because that's the thing is like it's such a shamble. There's plenty of people that are doing phenomenal work, and like plenty of people that are like helping advance the science base of what we understand in our clinical Western thinking, which is bullshit. But there are plenty of people that have been pushing the dial, like guys like Paul Stamets, for example. How many things have like been put under study because of his fruitions? So there's plenty of people out there that are like doing phenomenal work to ensure that what can be done is being done. But also, like you have like something like MAPS, for example. Okay. Just was it last year? Yeah, I think it was last year or the year before. I'm having a brain fart. MDMA was supposed to be rescheduled federally. Made it through everything, all of his clinical phases to show his clinical efficacy as good as any pharmaceutical drug has ever shown for PTSD and for depression. And it's put up on docket with Congress to be rescheduled, and then they fucking squashed it. So like MAPS put in all this fucking time and proved the efficacy, and the main reason that they said that they stopped it at that time is because they found, I believe it was either in one or two of the clinical sessions, there was one of the doctors had taken advantage of patients. That happens with every fucking one of them. You got shit people everywhere. Okay, so like, that's what they used to fucking stop it. It's like, oh well, we need more. We need to show like it was dirty because you had a piece of shit that was taking advantage of people that were under the influence of something. That's happened with every fucking drug. Every single clinical trial has like had a creep within it. But that's the unfortunate part is like it goes to show is like you have things that make it that fucking far that have proven their clinical efficacy better than anything a pharmaceutical company's ever fucking made, and then nothing. And it shows you like how deep it goes. I mean, it's unfortunately it's as high. And so, way I think about it now is if you feel like you need access to these medicines, it's the beauty of the media and all these different platforms that we have now is it doesn't take long for you to find the people that can give you that access. And do your research, read, take the fucking time. And wherever you live, there's probably somebody not far from you that's experienced it. And start there. Start having the conversation, and then look in the clinical evidence. Take your time and due diligence like you would with anything, and find the access to those things, because there's access everywhere. And if you want to worry about the law, there's plenty of places you can go where it's legal. Just hop over the border. And yeah, some of those things do take money. Some of those things do take time. But at the same time, it's like, okay, are you taking an SSRI that they're going to prescribe to you for the rest of your life? Or are you going to take $10,000 and go to Cancun for 2 weeks and have a journey, or wherever, like.
Are those journeys down there, they're generally, as you called, the toad? Or
a multitude of different things. I mean, so like in Mexico specifically, Mexico's got a lot of cool things that they do. So like one of the coolest, not I'm going to say coolest, but one of the like most impactful things like Mexico's been using since like the early 90s is something called ibogaine or iboga. It grows mostly in the southern part of Africa. Tribes have been using it there for literally thousands of years. It's extremely psychoactive plant. Sometimes can like have a multi-day experience. But what they've found that it has the greatest propensity for is for addictions. Any addiction. Like even opiate addictions, where the reason why people typically have a hard time of like coming off of opiate addictions or even like heavy alcohol addictions is because of their body's response to withdrawal is excruciating and a lot of times kills you. This shuts off the part of the brain that allows that to even fucking happen. And people have been going down to Mexico since like the early 90s and been going to clinics down there and taking it down there. And I believe it has around an 80% success rate of curing people for up to 6 months of whatever addiction it is that they needed help with. And anybody who doesn't have success past that 6 months is because they didn't change their environment that caused that in the first place, and they just go back to the same track. But it's not because their physical body wasn't healed. So you got stuff like ibogaine, where you do have the toad 5-MeO-DMT that they do use down there as well. Sometimes there's several clinics that will do ibogaine and they'll have you stay for a couple weeks and they'll like do ibogaine in one portion, and then a few days later have you do 5-MeO-DMT. And on the physical means of like what something like that can do is it literally can decalcify the brain. And they've found in clinical proven evidence that they've shown so far is that they've seen de-aging of the brain off of one single ibogaine experience of up to 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's stuff like that. There's so many different psychedelic and psychoactive medicines all over this fucking planet. Everywhere you walk, there's something psychoactive that we're literally just stepping over. That has like the ability to do things like that just don't seem fucking possible. And then also countries like that, or like Jamaica, mushrooms have been legal for years there now. Then like a ton of, but we as a country don't value their culture like we value ours, so we don't think their science is good. The same way we don't think the shaman were good. Like they're just witchcraft bullshit. No, they understood medicine, real medicine. They understood earth, they understood spirit. Whereas, where does that exist in any of our pharmaceutical? It doesn't.
Do you have any hope with? I go back and forth on ketamine a lot because ketamine had a lot of medical usage prior to them using it for PTSD, depression. Right now, it seems like it's being used for something called, I can't remember the actual term that they use, the abbreviation, but it's essentially SSRIs don't work. You've tried a multitude of them, and basically SSRI, you're not responding to those, and you've tried every one possible, and then they give you ketamine, and it's having miraculous results. Does that give you any hope that, like, did you ever imagine something like that would be as easy to get now? You can go tomorrow and get ketamine, but yet something that grows from the earth, they're battling every single day to keep it illegal on some front.
Yeah, I mean,
is that just to you? Is that the same old bullshit? Or
here's the thing: is like I think human ingenuity is part of what makes us special. And I think like not all pharmaceutical things are evil. Like ketamine's not evil. There's many people have been helped with the means of ketamine. What was LSD? What was MDMA? Those were all used for something else prior to them to realizing what they actually had made. All of them were thought to be for something else. And then they found out, oh wait, these things can expand our mind. These things can open us up and like have us drop our entire inhibitions to realize like the people around us are just as important as we are. So all those things are synthetically made. And MDMA is not natural. It is extracted from something that's natural, as is all pharmaceutical medicines. And it doesn't mean all of them are evil, because obviously there's a great power to understanding those things. No matter what you consume, regardless of whether it came from the earth or was made by man, if it has a response in your body, it's doing something. So if any front that it's doing good doesn't mean that the mushroom has to take full precedence when all of those things can heal, even if we made it. So it's like not even saying like pharmaceutical companies need to stop making those things. They need to stop being so fucking greedy. They need to like actually give a shit and realize that they're not the say-all. And yeah, the fact that it is pretty irking that you do have something like ketamine that is legal and anybody could go today to a clinic, and also too, each clinic kind of does it differently. You know, there's in the means of like they're using a pharmaceutical drug that is used for all these different things prior, and they find out, oh, well, it can be great for this. Well, yeah, you're right. But also soak in the mushroom, soak in the 5-MeO, soak in the ibogaine. All these things can do those as well. And just like every single version of Tylenol, there's a version of something that's going to have a different response in your body versus mine. And it takes the person that understands all those things, not just the one, all those things, to understand what's going to be best for the next person. And that's where like our medicine is very separate. Like how often does a doctor really know you?
Now more than ever, but you know, it's been past practice that, you know, functional medicine wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you told people to get IV vitamins until 5-6 years ago, they were like, you're a whack job.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Or even the means of like acupuncture.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, I believe it was like a couple years after, like the VA started like recognizing acupuncture, and we actually had an acupuncturist on our base, and like I'd go to him.
Oh, that's great.
Just because like, and nobody even like nobody knew that it was available. So like I would like I could schedule a time like basically any time I want. There's like me and like 6 other people on base that went to this guy because nobody knew it was accessible, and they didn't even know because of our fucking lack of understanding in our country that shit actually fucking works. That actually has great powers. Like how many medicines and things that are in other cultures and are being practiced and have been practiced for thousands of years, their evidence isn't good enough for us. And that's like the ploy that unfortunately our country goes with is like, oh, well, we have to find it in our Western means. We got to find our clinical data. Like we're something smarter, we're not. That's the issue. And like even things that aren't psychoactive, for example, like something like lion's mane mushroom, which I'm sure you've heard of, that is an adaptogen that has proven that it can cause neurogenesis. So people that are suffering from dementia, or people that have suffered from brain trauma or CTE, there's promise with that to actually repair damaged parts of the brain. Literally cause new neuron growth with that mushroom, which is non-psychoactive. And all these things that we're starting to slowly see in our clinical trials here in this country have been understood for thousands of years in other countries. And they have written records of. They understand that you consume this is going to be great for your liver. They understand. And some of that we have to see is like what's woo-woo and what's not. Like eating a fucking rhino horn to fucking grow your boner. Probably bullshit, and we found out it is bullshit. You know, so like, yeah, if it sounds too good to be true,
don't put the gas stations out of business.
Hey, man, they're gonna do that themselves. But that's the thing is like we need to take the fucking time, and unfortunately, most people, because it's been designed this way, don't, and because they've been suppressed their ability to understand these things because they've been made illegal. And people are too afraid to like realize that In most parts of this country, you can find psilocybin mushrooms growing. You just got to know where to look. And yes, it is against the law for you to pick them, but are they going to catch you in the woods? Probably not.
There's millions and millions and millions of strains of mushrooms. Do you know how many are psychoactive?
Well, okay, so there's different types. So cubensis is one species that contains psilocybin. So there's like psilocybin cubensis, which is the largest species of psychoactive mushrooms that kind of spans over all continents. I believe there's I can't remember, I think the last I saw was like around 206 identified mushrooms that fall within that. And so those are most like dung growing mushrooms that grow on like cow patties and stuff like that. Then there's other psilocybin containing mushrooms that grow on wood, like psilocybin natalensis or ionescence, or like there's several ones that grow in different climates on wood that also have other psychoactive properties other than psilocin. So there's
Is the intensity different? Sorry to interrupt.
Some of them are. Yeah, some of them. Like so, there's a few like wood growing ones that like seem to have that also have like a for some people will cause paralysis, but just temporary. While it's active in their body, will cause paralysis. Like they might have 6 hours during their paralysis, and they'll come back to as it wears down. So like some of the wood growing ones, some of those ones will have something that caused that as well in some people, but it seems to be somewhat a rarity, but enough that there has been enough like anecdotal evidence that it needs to be charted. And then there's other stuff. There's another mushroom like the Amanita muscaria, for example, like the famous Alice in Wonderland mushroom, the red and white mushroom with the red mushroom with the white dots on it, that contains a different type of psychoactive compound called muscalin, or muscimol, which is a completely different experience. You know, it. And that's the thing is like most psychoactive plants, whether they be plants or fungi, they will have their own journey, but they all kind of teach you the same things. Like their teacher's the same. Like what they are and what they come from is the same, which is the earth. So we think because we stand on it, we're above it. Whereas those things literally rely on it. Like the earth is their, like they don't have a choice but to be in the dirt. We get a choice to stand on it. It's like all these things like have a far more larger understanding of exactly what needs to be done. And regardless of like you have the experience with like one or like a muscalin containing mushroom, a psilocybin containing mushroom, you might find that the end result is the same for you. Because they're both going to challenge you.
The revelation, you mean, at the end?
Absolutely, yeah.
Have you had experiences with both of those?
I have, yeah. Mostly cubensis, because that's the most accessible. Nobody's really successfully found out a way to cultivate the, Amanita muscaria. Mostly because that one is actually has a God dang, what's it called? It has a bonding relationship with fir trees. It's like pine trees. So it's like nobody's like really figured out how to grow it, but it is legal. So that one actually is legal in this country. There's no like federal regulation on it right now. And mostly, I think part of the reason why it is that way is because you have to process it a certain way for you to consume it. You can't just eat those mushrooms. They're toxic. So you have to you got to boil it down. You got to know exactly like how much you're using. You got to like weigh everything properly, or you're gonna have a shit experience. Yeah. So like whereas like most cubensis mushrooms they're not gonna like damage you in any way. Like there's like no toxicity to them, other than you like losing your fucking mind if you took too much and you don't know what you're doing. There's gonna be no physical damage to your body.
You mentioned Paul Stamets yesterday, and I know this isn't the primary part of your operation, but as far as you also mentioned Lion's Mane, what have you seen in the growth of functional medicine with mushrooms? Because I've been on that train for a long, long time. Lion's Mane, turkey's tail, all those kind of supplements for me I feel acutely better, and I think that I only have anecdotal. I've never, but I'm sure there's PubMed out there for everything. But do you feel like any of your work is going to transition into, like you said, functional medicine, where you might start operating full spectrum? I mean, outside of just the PTSD, the psychedelics, do you have interest in starting to procure and get plants of these species that are basically vitamins, for lack of a better term?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, I mean, the whole, like, the means of, like, what my business is right now is, like, the means of, like, what I can afford for it to be. You know, it's like for, you know, mostly cultures and spores is mostly what I sell. It's like genetics. That's mostly what I'm doing. It's like I'm not really growing like mushrooms, like lion's mane to give to restaurants or like make supplements or anything with. Now, I do have a massive interest in doing that when money's made available to like put back into the materials to do that, because like they require different things, different environments, et cetera, et cetera. And then also at the end of the day, it's like, for one, like my entire intention is betterment. You know, it's like it's not just psychoactive means that needs to happen. Like just whatever we consume needs to be better. And absolutely things like lion's mane or cordyceps or turkey tail that have all had extensive clinical studies done on all of them to show not just notions of what they think they could do, but written evidence for thousands of years in other places that even makes us think that they could do those things, and then we're proving it through science. Absolutely, like I want to like expand across the means of all of it. Like my goal is like I want to have a massive library bank, whereas people could reach out and like ask for anything, and I could, or ask for something like, what would you recommend? And I could like set up something where I just give them what might be best for what they're trying to procure. Because at the end of the day, it's like anything that helps your body helps your mind, and anything that helps your mind helps your body. So they all bits of it are medicine, you know, especially the ones that we have isolated to understand that they are medicine. And something, for example, like lion's mane, and talking about Paul Stamets, one of the coolest things Paul Stamets has come up with, in my opinion, is something called the Stamets stack, okay, which is, it's fucking phenomenal. And I've personally, on my own anecdotal experience doing this protocol, it's where you take lion's mane, psilocybin, and niacin, and you microdose with those for 4 days on, 3 days off, and you just do that for a couple months and see what happens. For me personally, just because I've had some brain trauma, I can literally feel the synapses in my fucking brain firing that were dormant before. I mean, I could feel it actively doing its work in me. And because those things are synergizing together. For one, you have an adaptogen within the lion's mane that's allowing this neuroregenesis. And then you're having something like the psilocybin and the psilocin expressing in your brain and allowing everything to fire at a faster rate, and the niacin that allows your body to absorb it even more. So you take all three of those things, they synergize within your body and literally just elevates the potential for each one of those things to work in you. So that's one of those. That's probably one of the coolest innovations, honestly, within mushrooms, has been like made through that stack, because it works. And there's like so many people that I've seen that have used that for a multitude of different things, whether it be for memory loss or because like they're trying to get off Adderall or SSRIs, and they've done it. And like even in the means for myself, like when I was in my late 20s, when I first came across the Stamets stack, I was suffering from everything that needed to be fixed that was supposedly could fix. And within a month of me doing that protocol, I literally went from like being, I would have conversations with people, this late 20s, man. Like I would have conversations with people, and like 5 minutes later, not even know who I talked to. They'd come back and like, you know, try to start the conversation again. Like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's how bad it was. And I went from that within like a month to my memory being better than it ever was. Now, that could just be my anecdotal experience, but there's a lot of other people that I know that have had the same experience. You know, so a lot of mushrooms and a lot of things we consume in general synergize together the same way as like turmeric, for example. Okay, you get a turmeric pill from the store, unless they're a shit brand, there's going to be something else in there like cayenne or some type of other spice that allows it to be absorbed into your body. Because if you just take the turmeric, you're not going to get the full benefit of that anti-inflammatory. Now, when you add an inflammatory to it, like some type of spice, it'll allow your body to absorb it at a faster rate. So then you get something from it. And that's almost everything we consume. If you pair things together, it'll allow it to actually work better in you. And how many, that's everything. And unfortunately, like, everything we consume, we don't pair things like that anymore. We pair things off of taste or accessibility. Whereas, like, you look at cultures that are still, like, close to the earth, they pair things with intent. Like, because they know that if you eat these things together, it's going to have this effect instead of just eating something. So it's like everything we consume, whether it be like growing a psychedelic or growing the lion's mane, it's understanding that both of them are doing the same thing, bettering you. You know, so for me, absolutely. I mean, like, on the longer, cut it short. I would say, and yeah, my intentions for the long run is, like, I'm looking for a farm. You know, that's something I'm trying to do within the next couple of years, and I'm going to produce anything that I think is necessary to produce. So anything that I think could help people or that we could use cleaner or better access of, I'm going to grow and provide that.
What kind of fabrication or industrialization of a piece of property would you need, and how long? Let's say you had a plot of land. When could you get a full-scale operation? And is even the soil differences that you would need to grow something that's psychoactive, the type of conditions, how much do they differ? Let's say you wanted to grow cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey's tail, as opposed to...
Very little. Now, like, so kind of like... back in 2021, I was looking for a property at that time. And I had my partner and I, we had a loan for $300,000. She had a good job at the time, and I had a pretty good job. So we got approved for this loan. We were, like, over that summer, looking super heavy for properties, and it just didn't happen. And then she was actually on maternity leave at this time with our second child, and when it was like, obviously this is post-pandemic, you know, like, so we're like in the fucking cleanup of all of it, and as she was going back to work, they had let her go. And right at that time, I had just stepped away from my job to start this business. So, like, I went on to, like, have to take on all of it, and then, like, lost the loan because of that. So, like, I've been, like, stuck in this limbo of, like, building credit back and, like, building my business so I can get accepted for a loan again. But at that time, yes, I was looking for properties with an outbuilding. That was the main goal. Like, find some acreage. Soil doesn't really necessarily matter. I prefer, like, obviously some places, like, not next to a fucking farm that's getting sprayed, you know, shit like that. But a lot of it just came down to, like, finding municipalities that I could build as I want, because, like, what I want to do is dig. And what I mean by that is use geothermal and find a property of which I can dig into and use geothermal energy where I could grow literally fucking anything year round. And the fact that, like, we don't use that everywhere all the time is pretty fucking dumb, because literally you can grow fucking oranges in Missouri if you know how to use geothermal.
Wow.
And it's not hard to do. Like, none of that stuff's hard to do. I mean, it's all very simple. It's like, it's nothing that takes fucking rocket science to make any of these things happen. It just takes a lot of fucking willpower. And if I had fucking land to do that, I would build that in a fucking day, because I'd just start digging.
And what would have been, let's say you secured that property, what could you have done within the law now? I know you mentioned municipalities, but based on the Missouri law, what could you do?
A lot of similar things. You know, for one, like, if I had the means of a property like that, for one, what sucks now for me is, like, I rent 2 properties. You know, so if I had one mortgage, then there goes the overhead of running my business. So then it's just, like, a much easier means to profit, whereas, like, now I'm just fucking breaking even. You know, there's no savings. I've been zapped dry of that, so, like, I'm just surviving at this moment. So, like, the access to a space like that, where I only have to come up with a couple $1,000s a month instead of several thousand, lot fucking easier situation. And then also opens up the means of like how much I've been producing now just to break even if I just produce that same amount, that's that much overage that I can invest into doing everything else. Because like the whole goal is like, as far as quote unquote brand, which that's another thing I have a fucking turmoil with, is like I never really started this as a business. And what I mean by that is like, it's much more than a fucking business to me. This is a way of life. This is like, so like branding, I feel is fucking dirty in this space. Like fucking all these people like coming up with their stupid fucking brands for psychedelics. Fuck you. Like, no. Because that's your ego saying this is what you should take. Whereas that's not what this is about. So for me, like I've been very like, a lot of times like I've had my LLC since 21, but like I don't share it very often. You know, if you look me up, you're gonna find like just me and my Facebook probably faster than anything. And then you might start seeing speckles of things of my business mission throughout that. I don't have a fucking logo. I have a name because I had to create one for my LLC, you know, but that's literally the means of it. But in the means of like what's necessary and like what I have to like deal with as being an American citizen or being a citizen period is like, I've got to make money and I've got to be able to expand something. And if it's through a brand, my whole intention of that brand is to make access for anything that can help somebody. And in getting the space where I can do that, where I don't just have to grow mushrooms or I don't just have to grow plants or cactus or whatever it may be, I will grow and having a property like that, back to the question of like, what would the difference be? I just do the same thing. Because I can make a living doing that. And that's and it's like, okay, so I can't just grow the mushrooms and sell the mushrooms. I can survive with selling their spores. I'm already doing that. But if I could do everything else as well, real fucking easy. And if it's all in one space, I could do a whole lot of fucking work in one space. Right now I got to travel. Right now I got to go to and fro. You know, so if I have the ability to like work within this one fucking space, I could manage a farm and a mushroom farm and cattle all in one day. No problem. Because I can see it.
Before I forget, I wanted to ask you, I was on some tinctures for a while. So as far as the functional aspect of all this is concerned, do you have any research or do you have any preference or recommendation if you're going to take something? What is the best route of administration?
And that's kind of the hard part because, you know, for one, you go to any store now, you can get mushroom supplements or whatever, you know, natural-based supplement. And some of them are by big brands that seem flashy and they seem good and they probably make really good sales and they say all the right things, but you got to read between the lines. So, for example, like a lot of stuff within supplements, like they'll say for lion's mane, if you read the back of the label, will say mycelial mat, or like the mycelial block will say the grain. And what they mean by that is they're not using the mushroom; they're grinding up all what the mushroom grew off of. They're using the substrate.
Repeat that again. What would it say?
So like it might say like mycelial mat, or it'll say rye berries, or it'll say corn or something like that. Mycelial corn. And what they're meaning is like they're using the soil or the substrate that they use to grow the mushroom to make that supplement. And it's not the same thing as the mushroom. And then some extractions are more beneficial, just like anything. So like understanding and like doing the research, but honestly, the best route to go is if you want to know if a product's legitimate, look to who's progressing science, and I say go with Paul Stamets' company of host defense. You know, honestly, like if you're going to toot a name, which, you know, not all branding's evil. Not all like what you do with it means something. It's like that's somebody who actually you can see has taken his money and his fame and like progressed science with it. And he's like made so many different patents that you can trust that if you're getting a supplement from him, maybe there's somebody that grows better mushrooms. But they know the science of how to extract it. Whereas like a place like that, he's not cutting the corners on those ends. So you might pay a little bit more for it, but also what are you supporting? You're paying for the science and that product to always get better, because if there's a means for it to be better, you got to bet that that guy's probably going to do it. Whereas the next guy's going to settle because he's already got your money. So a lot of it's just understanding and like knowing where to read between the lines, and also like in the means of like things that are deemed organic, okay? There's so much bullshit on that as well. Just because it has USDA organic on it doesn't mean it's fucking organic. That means that something in it might be. So there's a lot of fucking loopholes, and you just got to learn how to read between the lines, you know, which is not hard for anybody. Everybody can do that. It's just like you got to know the P's and Q's and where they're using language to lie to you. So, and then also trust the sources of things that have the most information. You know, so if you like go to a website and the first thing that they're just like throwing at you is like how great that product is, or, you know, fill out this coupon, it's probably bullshit. Because if they're leading with the base of a sale, then why do you want it in the first place? You want their product, not just to give them money because it looks flashy and you think it's going to help.
Yeah. I've told people, I worked for a nutrition clinic for a little while, and one of the biggest things that I was told was to immediately look at the back of the supplement for the B12, because there's cinacobalamin, hydrocobalamin, and methylcobalamin, and a lot of people don't know that 50% of the population actually has a methylation disorder just because of Western science. So our Western diet has basically fucked our gut biome. And so instead of risking it, first off, there's studies that say cinacobalamin is not good for you, based out of what it's made out of. But if you look for a methylcobalamin, which is a methylated version of B12, you know that company took the extra step to give you the best possible thing. What would I look for, or what would somebody look for? Because you mentioned what it might say. But if they wanted to go to Natural Grocer, they wanted to go to Sprouts, and they picked up some type of mushroom supplement, what would they look for on the bottle that would indicate that this is a high-quality, high-vision product?
Like I said, main way, instead of having to like, go through all that work and I just didn't like, oh, is that what they said? Post defense.
Yeah.
Go with the company that's trusted. Okay? Like, go with a company that's backing science, and you're going to get the real thing.
Is there anyone else besides Stamets stuff,
yeah,
just off the top of your head?
Yes, because there's so many different ones that I've tried, you know, just myself out of curiosity. Oh my god, I'm having a brain. Four Sigmatic is a pretty good company.
Okay, they've been in the game a long time.
Yeah, been in the game for a long time. And they seem like all their extraction methods are very similar to what Paul's company are doing. So like, it seems like they're following science-based. They're not just grinding shit up and saying this is what it is, which unfortunately you got to think in the means of supplements. What's the leeway on supplements? Basically what the law states for supplements is you just can't make any bald, untrue claims. So you can't just say this cures cancer, but you can say this might.
Yeah.
You know, so like a lot of companies will kind of ride off of that, you know, because like just like anything, it's like this is a new frontier of opportunity. So like for entrepreneurs that don't give a shit, but they give a shit about money, you come in and just grind up a bunch of fucking mushrooms and just say, oh, this is what it is. I was like, well, yeah, they're not lying, but is that the best way to present it? Well, they're not using the science, so no. And enough people, if they brand it properly, and unfortunately that's within the world, it's so easy to make a brand big without actually even doing anything right. Just by being flashy. Just by saying the right things and like knowing how to market.
I've been susceptible to it.
Everybody has.
Yeah.
I mean, even myself. Everybody, because that's that's how we're taught.
Yeah.
That's how we're taught to consume. Not just in this country, but every fucking country that's been affected by our Western way of thinking. You know, every country, even the communist countries, still they're under the same type of rule of thinking. Nobody, unfortunately, because the world we live in, there's different tiers of people. There's you and I sitting here and talking, and then the guy that owns this building and the other building, and then the guy that owns the city. and then it goes further than that, and it just keeps going there. And each one of those, each one's trying to protect themselves. Each one's trying to stay where they're at or do a little bit more. But the difference is like, what would you do if you had that drive to own this? What would you do if you had the drive to run that corporation? And there's a lot of good corporations. There's a lot of people that have like provided jobs and opportunities for people in rural areas that might not have ever had that, but at what expense and what cost? You know, so it's like a lot of like anything you consume. At the end of the day, it's like we all have to buy groceries in most cases. Very few people are farming for themselves, you know, especially if you live in a city like this. It takes a lot of work and a lot of know-it-all. And also, you're relying on fucking city water. You're relying on a multitude of things that make it a little bit more difficult. So the reality for most people is like you still got to shop at the grocery store. And even Whole Foods sells bullshit. So find and do research on everything you consume and try your best to consume what makes the most sense for you. And that's the other hard thing too, is like each person's different. You know, I can't tell like one person to like go eat this or that and it's going to be so great for you, because that's not true. You know, and unfortunately it's like different blood types make a difference in what you can consume. Your heritage makes a difference on what you should consume. You know, everything makes a difference, but we don't think that way anymore because we've come to rely upon the people that tell us. And then they're obviously all wrong.
Okay, what about safety? Is there anything off the top of your head that you would want known that you've come to the conclusion of in your research? And it can't even be like, you know, supplement legitimacy, but anything that you've come to that you think you just said in very safely, and hats off to you, research fucking everything. Yeah. But what are your main safety concerns if somebody was going to try to treat themselves by doing the research? Would it be something? Sorry, go ahead.
Especially, okay, like to be specific to the means of psychedelics, research isn't enough. It's good to know people that you can rely upon, that can like give you the confidence to go for it or not go for it. And I want it, and also like back to the means of legality. If the whole means of legality is to keep people safe, there is something to that, because not everybody should just be taking mushrooms. Not everybody should just be fucking popping acid. That would not be good for society. Overall, it wouldn't do as much harm as I think we think it would. I think it'd probably help in a lot of means, but at the same time, it's like it's not worth the chaos, because some people will go south. So I'd say like if you feel like you need something like that, do more than do your research. Do your research and then find the people that are having the conversation like I am right now, because I'm not the only one. There's plenty of people out there that have gone through it and are doing their best to ensure that other people have that opportunity, that will be more willing to help point you in the right direction. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, don't just do research for something like that, because it's too fucking powerful and it might not have the results you're looking for. But if you have it from somebody who knows and understands it, they can coach you a little bit better on what to do properly. So it actually has a positive benefit, because at the end of the day, it's like the consumption of anything, whether it's supposedly good for you or not, if that's all you consume and you don't take the time to think about what else you might need, it might have a negative effect. You might go vegan tomorrow and say, I'm just going to eat spinach. Well, guess what? Spinach is toxic if you eat too much of it. But you didn't know that when nobody told you. You just assumed because spinach is you're told that spinach is good. Just saying anything is fucking bananas. You can't eat too many fucking bananas, you'll get potassium poisoning. You can consume too much of anything. So it's like the same way that you would consume anything, take this 10 times more serious because it anything that's going to take you away from your own sense of being, you should take serious, because that's where the efficacy can go out the window. It's like, yeah, people should have access. But also, that's kind of the beauty of having municipality and having science, is understanding that there should be a safety net for people to do things safely. And doing things safely is with a trusted sources, not just by yourself. Very few people are going to drink alone.
Yeah.
So why would you want to do that experience alone when it's so much fucking more? So like I'd say, take the time, find in almost every, and that's kind of the cool thing too, is almost every state now has groups. Like, there's Psychedelic Missouri, there's a psychedelic group in Lawrence and in Kansas. And like, there's groups everywhere. You don't have to go far. Search around. You might, if you're in a rural space, you're in a rural space. Okay, I mean, that is what it is. But for everybody else, you don't have to go far. It's all by you. I mean, everything's around you already. Just in the beauty of the access of what we have to things today, there's enough freedom still that we can find those places and do a Google search, and you're not going to get your fucking door kicked down because you Google searched local shaman. You're not gonna get arrested for asking questions. Okay, so
they might kill you, but
they might. Just don't talk too much. Yeah. I'd say that's one thing I would recommend for all people as far as the means of safety is like, especially with psychedelics, don't just guess and just do it when you legitimately are doing it to help yourself. Because when you're already not in the right state of mind and you think you're going to take something that's just going to do that for you, that's not what this does. Now, if like somebody like me, I was able. I'm an exception, okay? That doesn't mean I'm the rule. Everybody's different. And it's like, also, I didn't just go in it alone. I had a group the first time. So I was in a safe space. Okay, so it wasn't just upon my own fruition. And also I didn't even know what the fuck it was when I took it. I didn't know. So in that happenstance, it was able to do what it did for me because of how it was presented. So like, allow yourself to be presented the same way, and then you'll be safe. That will be the safety for you. That's how it will work. Don't just like get mushrooms from somebody and be like, oh, I read that I should take 5, but I don't know, maybe I'll take 8. Don't. Like, it's not going to be what you think it is.
I love the intrinsic battle that you have, because I can see it going on where you look at everything so drastically from the positives and the negatives. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that you constantly counter a good point with a bad point, and that is a balance is such a huge issue, which is basically what you were just implying, is that balance is so fucking huge. And when you back that with research and you're willing to go into something open-minded but also educated and balanced, that is where I see the benefit and the healing that can be done with your types of products and the things that you support.
Well, I think we have to be honest. Like, have to be honest. Like, be fucking real. Be authentic with what the truth is of things. And fortunately, in the times that we live, we have access to a lot of concrete information. So because of that, it's like, for me, I think nature can do everything we need it to do. I think every fucking ailment we've ever had, we can fix through nature. Does that mean that every pharmaceutical drug that's ever been made hasn't been worth it? That would be a fucking lie. We are nature. Our consciousness and how we exist in this world and how we react to it is nature. Now, we have to understand what is the best suiting part of nature we can be. And unfortunately, the means of which we've been taught and the way that we've been accepting our society is just being ourselves, which is very fucking selfish. And that's why so many people are fucking broken and in turmoil, is because they're not recognizing that you are every interaction that you have.
Do you think that experience that you had with that group of people while you were working at that restaurant, it changed the trajectory of your life? Do you think that you could have ever come to this conclusion without that?
Yeah, I think probably at some point, because I had an interest. So at the same time, I had started growing cannabis, like right before this happened. So like I was already, and like I said, I always had an interest in naturopathy. Like even growing up as a kid, like I just had an interest in optimizing health. So I think at some point, just because they go hand in hand, this would have happened. But also it goes back to like trusting the process of things, especially in your own life, and like what good happens, what bad happens, like what doesn't make sense, like why am I suffering this right now? So I can be fucking right here. So I can have the grit and the balls that I have. Like that didn't just happen. Like those things had to be instilled. Yeah, I had natural proclivities like a lot of fucking people do. But what separates me from everybody else that could do what I do is I'm doing it. Because I choose to and I accept that I'm supposed to. And it's something that I can't like separate from my being. If I was doing something else, it wouldn't be fulfilling.
How much pushback have you given on yourself that you're going to eventually have to conform? You're paying your bills with your passion right now, but you know that having a little bit of conformity branding is going to access more people, but it's also going to turn this into something that maybe you don't like, which is the business aspect. Does that weigh on you pretty heavily, that's ultimately going to be the step that you're going to have to take?
It does, but also I've got plans for that. Like as of right now, like realistically, I need to start like putting more emphasis on my brand and logo and all that shit, just because that's how I will be perceived. That's how the business in itself will be perceived and seen. And like having a website and place where people can visit, which that's what the world is doing now. Like I have to conform to that process, but also I'm obviously doing something right now that isn't something that's giving me a pension.
Right.
I don't plan on retiring with money. I'm going to get what I need and I'll live without it. And then what I do will be done off of my own fruition for free. So whatever brand I have to build between now and then to make that happen will dissolve as soon as that happens. And then if I need to conform to that between now and then and like grow it because there's a logo, because there's a brand, and because there's more demand from that, then that's where I can make sense of hiring somebody to give them that opportunity. And then it doesn't have to wait like that. So I've thought about all those things. I definitely have a plan for all of them. It's just it's a difficult, slow, grueling process, because at the end of the day, yeah, this is not a legal, completely legal process. So I have to mind my fucking P's and Q's of how and I do this, the pace that I go at. And this is not a run anymore. This is a slow walk, but that's okay because I can still run when I want to.
I was going to ask you what your plan was, but you pretty much summed it up, man. And to hear that makes me happy because it sounds ignorant, but I don't know you or your business as well as I would like to, but I want more for you and I want you to be able to reach more people. If they want to reach out to you, what can they do to contact you now? Where are you at? So what's your business called?
So it's my company's called Cultured Cultures LLC, but pretty much right now all I've got is just my Instagram page. Okay. So you just find me through there. If you want to find me by my name on Facebook, people do all the time. Shoot me a message or like
Daniel Harkins.
Yes, yeah, and a lot of my business has literally just been word of mouth. I mean, almost everybody that finds themselves to me is word of mouth. Somebody told them, like, so it's been organic, which has been beautiful because for me, like I said, like I don't want it to ever feel like a business because that's not what this is. It is because it has to be, but that's the business is the last fucking part. Yeah. So, but as far as reaching out, like absolutely. I mean, people find me any which way you want. You can just look me up, find me, look up my name. You can. People send me texts all the time. I'm cool with it. People find my email and send me an email. I'm cool with that. I don't care. If I can help you and we can help each other, then something's been done. So it's like that's the means of which I go right now. And they're currently building a website, which has been a long, slow, grueling process because I can't make my fucking mind up is honestly what it comes down to. I'm too nitpicky. But I'll have that up here going here soon. And then, obviously make it a little bit easier for people like to reach out and also like see product right away, see what there is to offer instead of like having to like call them like, what's the menu? They'll be able to see it and they can just order right there. So I'm going to make that just so it can streamline for people, But yeah, it's definitely been something like I've been slow with doing because like I said, I have a very clear vision of what I want this to be and I'm not going to conform to the things that don't make sense.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being vulnerable, sharing your story, and I hope it helps a lot of people. I know I had a crazy experience that actually brought me back to God just doing ketamine. And
would you mind sharing yours?
I will, yeah. I'll share it real quick. I was struggling with some symptoms that, again, I had no idea that they were labeled as PTSD, and it was like anger, loud sounds, things like that. And I work in emergency medicine, but to me, I never really felt like I saw too many things. And of course, when you tell other people what you have seen, they're like, well, holy shit, that makes sense. But the truth is, man, one thing that's weird about ketamine that I'll say, and maybe you can really quickly compare this, but my epiphany didn't happen. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic. I didn't wake up and drink, but I was smoking marijuana and using alcohol consistently daily. And about 3 weeks after I did ketamine, complete neurogenesis. I don't think about alcohol. I don't think about marijuana. Not that I have anything against either of those, but for me, it's not even a priority. And the fact that it switched that, and then to know my friends and other people that have had quicker and similar experiences with something that grows from the earth, it's an important mission to me, and I hope that people see your blood, sweat, and tears that you've put, and I know that you took some time off of the lobbying and the activist stuff, but you've been hard at work doing what you just described for this last hour or so, and I just want to say thank you, dude, for taking the time to do this because it means a lot to me, and it's clear that it means a lot to you, and there's no fluff, there's no mask on your mission and your position, so...
I appreciate it. Honestly, I'm grateful to share. 'Cause at the end of the day, it's not something I just want to do. It's something I need to do. It's necessary that these changes are made. It's necessary that you have activists. It's necessary that you have people that are taking the time to improve upon what we don't know, especially with the things that are so precious. At the end of the day, it's like, whether it's ketamine or it's mushrooms that get you there, the access needs to be made available for all of them with clear understanding. There can't be fucking lies, can't be deceiving, can't be a fucking business leading it. It needs to be people like doctors used to be that gave a shit about curing their patient, not giving them Band-Aids so they can come back next week and pay again. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what it is. And it makes it very difficult for people that are even practicing medicine, not just in our country, but for a lot of countries, they have their hands tied. Because the business that they do is a business. How the fuck can you have a business of helping people? Seems like bullshit to me. Yeah. Now, there's different means of things, obviously. You're a fucking surgeon. You should probably get paid for that. If you're just the one writing fucking pills, come on. Do better. Take the fucking time yourself and push back if you know that there's another option. And that's what I hope to do is like press that space because I'm not that. I'm not a fucking doctor, but I'll sit down with them. They want to talk fucking press on points. I bet you I'll run circles around them because they don't experience this. They don't really know.
And there's not an excuse. They're intelligent enough to put themselves in some incredible spaces, and so for them to ignore the black and the white that's out there with the help that can be done with.
Give you a most recent example for me. Moved into a new neighborhood back in September, and met one of the neighbors in the neighborhood, younger guy, just a couple years younger than me, and just got to talking, and you're sharing them. Like they don't SSRIs for the last several years, and like what he's been dealing with, and kind of told him what I do, and his wife's a nurse. So I mentioned to him, I'll kind of show you the means of like how to microdose and stuff like that. And I presented all that stuff to him, and then he like shared that with his wife, and his wife came back and said, "So you're just gonna use drugs?" What? How ignorant can you fucking be? But that's the thing, is like people that are entrenched in it, that do have great intentions, are fucking blind. Like that's how fucking deep it goes, and like how many people still to this day, how many fucking goddamn documentaries are there need to be for people to like maybe look into it?
Yeah.
That is so fucking sad.
There's not enough.
There's not enough.
And that's why we have to have these conversations.
And too many people are blind. And it's not because they're stupid, it's because they're ignorant. As all of us are. Even I'm ignorant in so many different ways of things. Ignorance just means you don't fucking know. Or you've been duped.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us have been. All of us have been duped. And there's no way of escaping that, but guess what? That's the beauty of our country, is there's a chance to fix it. While we still got a chance, we're still a democracy, we can still fight for things. And that's what people should do. People should have the gall to say, no, this isn't for me. This isn't for my neighbor. This isn't for him. This isn't for her. And actually stand up and fucking do something. Do something. Don't just fucking talk or share your social fucking media post. Do something. If you have conviction, do something. And everybody, we've been given all these fucking platforms for us to air our dirty laundry. Well, guess what? Those fucking platforms feed the seed that make us so fucking angry. Why? Why? But we keep doing it. There's so much evidence to show how dark these things are, and people continue to fall into it and consume it because we've literally became it. Like we are AI at this point. We are bio. We are fucking robots already.
It's the definition of insanity.
It really is, and we're allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, the average person does have enough sensibility to hear this out. So if you do, listen. Don't take my word from it, because I'm not the only one speaking. There's people far smarter than me even that are fucking speaking upon this. Do a little reading. Step away from the things that are not fucking helping you, and you'll have the time to do that. But everybody acts like they don't have time because they got to check into their fucking TikTok. You got the fucking time. 24 hours in a day, and the average of us are not working fucking past 10. Bullshit. Find it. Find that fucking hour you can read. And you don't have to go far. And the fact of the matter is, like, yeah, plenty of shit's curated, but guess what? They still have to show you. Google might slow down what comes in, but they're still going to show you everything that shows something to do with psilocybin, because that's how their algorithms work. Dig, read a little bit, take the fucking time. Don't just read the tidbits. Apply yourself, because you're already helping yourself by doing so. Application's already helping you. Moving and expanding your mind's already helping you. So through that process, like, hold yourself accountable, which unfortunately for a lot of people that are in turmoil, it's easier said than done, but do something. Talk to people. Reach out. Like, use your voice. Don't just stew in yourself and wonder why everything's burning around you. It's like, well, you could get up and move, or you could fill up the pail and put out the fire. Either way is an option. Take one. There's a lot of people that sit in their smoke, and they're choking and wondering why. And it's like, it's getting hot in here. It's like, well, the fucking fire's on your couch, asshole. Put it out. Do something. And most people are. But they're too fucking distracted with thinking about everything they need to do that they don't focus on what they have to do. Just because you're living and you're getting by, even based on neglect, doesn't mean that you're living. Truly living is being fully functional with how you are and what you and yourself can be. We were given these bodies for a reason. Make something of it. Fix your stature. Fix the way you breathe. Fix the way you eat and you think. All of those things can be done very simply. And there's so many people that are striving to give that information for other people. How many fucking trainers are out there? How many sports coaches? How many jiu-jitsu gyms? How many places are made accessible for people that are trying to better themselves? And how many more there should be?
Doctor.
There should be more jiu-jitsu gyms than fucking churches.
Yeah. Dr. Peter Attia writes about the health span versus lifespan. And medicine that we have now is amazing for lifespan, but not for health span.
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody can just find their health span and extend that period of time, because it's so, so important.
It is, and we live in a time where that's accessible to most people, regardless of whether you're the billionaire or not. Like, sublimizing your health and getting means to the proper minerals that benefits you and your own vessel is pretty easy. As shitty as Amazon is, you can buy a lot of good products through Amazon. Most things can be delivered anywhere. And if like that weighs on your conscience and what you consume, that you have to order something, so do it until you don't have to. And it's like that's just reality for all of us. Like the reality, even what I have to do is like, okay, where do all the materials come that I have to use to grow the things that I do or to produce the things that I do? It's all coming from factories. Some of them are in China. Some of them are all over. The intention, though, is to get to the point where I don't have to rely on any of those things anymore. Either A, I'll produce it myself, or I can go directly to the source. And that is something that could be made possible anywhere, because there's plenty of people that are making the materials and things that I need, probably here in this state. I just haven't met them yet. Or like maybe they're not producing specifically for that yet, because they just don't know. Like, oh, well, also, you could use this for me. In this. In that. So it's a lot of it's like that people don't rely. Another thing that should be a challenge for a lot of people is rely on your fucking farmers markets as much as possible. Help those farmers flourish. And then once you consume those things, you'll quickly find out nothing from the supermarket's near as good. And then you might even have to try to be like, you know what? Those tomatoes are so good, I want to try to grow them myself. And everybody just starts doing that. It's going to be very hard for people to keep poisoning us. And us to keep poisoning ourselves because it's not going to taste good.
Yeah.
Literally.
And you can always reconstruct your palate.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. You know, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a lot of what we consume are things that trick our brain into making us think it tastes good. Like absorb the astronomical amounts of sugar that are put in all of our fucking foods. It's not just that it tastes good, it's because it hijacks your fucking dopamine receptors. That's why it tastes so fucking good, because it gives you a sense of euphoria, of which it was never meant to be consumed that way. The same way as, like, you shouldn't be fucking smoking DMT all the time. You shouldn't be on fucking acid every day. Does you no good. You might think it does while you're doing it for a fucking month or two, but you're lying to yourself. Everything's got a limit. And understanding those limits is trial and error, but also, like, there's enough good information that you can see the trials before you make those errors. So people just take the time, man. That's, like, the main things. Like, fucking take the time to research. Take the time. Like, if you care for yourself or care to change your reality or the things that are around you, you should probably read about the people who did.
Thank you, dude.
Thank you,
You're
brother.
the fucking best.
Love you, dude.
I love you, man.